I'd like to call the meeting to order. The current time is 1 o'clock. Ms. Shannon Ramirez, confirm the quorum, please.
Yes, ma'am, we have yourself, Trustee Dr. Mackey, Trustee Steen, Vice Chair Romero. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Eugene Diaz to provide the safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Diaz, please proceed with the safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance.
Afternoon. I'll review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door to exit outside and verbally alert others. We'll move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot at the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. Our security team will be watching and will notify the appropriate emergency services. Lastly, we'll also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to ensure we are prepared. Will you please stand with me for an invocation? We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing important responsibilities. We ask that you will guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Help us to accomplish our goals while displaying your character. Help us to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to fulfill our obligations to our community. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Again, Mr. Eugene Diaz, thank you very much for item number 2. Item number 3 is public comment. Mr. Tony Ramirez, please proceed with public comment.
Public comment provides opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on posted agenda items for this meeting. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak. They may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they will speak about. For this meeting, we will have 6 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Mr. Yenter, 2.
Good afternoon. My name is Henrietta LaGrange, member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang, LULAC, and Growing Up Brown. It's a great opportunity and a blessing for me to be here today. And I know that I'm proud of CPS Energy's participation in the Cesar Chavez March because I was there too. And it was great to see all those persons there, workers, being so happy. And may I say, I am very happy to see everybody here in the audience. It's great, and thank you for taking the time to be here. My topic for today is the Affordability Discount Program. And Elena Ball is such an amazing lady, person, worker, who dedicates herself very hard to this program because I am caught in the middle of the affordability program. And when I say I'm caught in the middle, it's because people understand and know that I come here, and they know that I know people that manage these programs, and they ask me for help. and I know who to go for when the community needs help. And I'm very happy that Ms. Ball is one of the people that's head of this program. It's just great that it's happening now because it is a much very needed program. And I know that the one that makes it all possible is Chairman Gonzalez, Vice Chair Francine Romero, and the one and only CEO Rudy Garza. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Yenter 2, followed by Larry Leos. Thomas, please cue the timer for 4 minutes to allow for translation services.
Just real quick, Mr. Ramirez, can you speak more into the mic when you introduce people? Just put it a little closer, thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. Hope all of you are having a good afternoon. My name is Yenter. Last name is Tu, T-U, and I'm the CEO for Deaf Agencies of San Antonio, and it's a community that we represent here. I would like to thank all of you for your service towards us in the community. The community has learned a lot about your company and the importance for us to be aware and prepared for any electric emergencies. I am excited to let you know April 4th, we're having a community resource center, and there will be a gathering there, and we'll provide interpreters, and I'd like to thank you for that as well, for providing those services. One more thing I wanted to say, I did receive a sign up for the emergency alert system for the weather, and I've been getting those notifications, and it's been awesome, and it's very important for me to continue to receiving those. Unfortunately, there are some deaf people who have trouble reading, literacy problems, and I would love if there could be a signed addition to that, in addition to the actual reading the words, and that would be something that I would love to prepare for. But thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Larry Leos, followed by Didi Balmeres. Thomas, can you please cue the timer for 4 minutes to allow for translation services?
Hi, hello, good afternoon. My name is Larry Leos, and I'm retired from the United States Post Office. I worked there for 35 years. I have been a longtime servant to the deaf community, and in 2010, I set up San Antonio Deaf Breakfast Community, and we have a meeting every Friday, and we do need your help because I've been alone in helping the deaf community with communication, writing, going to CPS, paying bills. Their electricity gets cut off. They have a hard time reading. So there is a lot of barriers there, and there are a lot of deaf that don't know how to, I guess, accommodate their CPS issues. And a lot of them end up calling 911 if they need, if their electricity goes out, and they rely on video phones. So if people do have an emergency and they need to use their video phone, they are unable to access that. So I have allowed people to come to my home and make calls or emergency calls if they need to. We go to the San Pedro CPS, and they have a booth set up there. That way people can talk to the customer service, and they have the TTYs there. Many deaf do not use those anymore. I would love if there could be a video phone put in with an interpreter, and that's something that we do need help with because I've been helping the deaf community for 35 years. I'm 70 years old now. You know, if God allows me, I can continue doing those, I can continue helping, but we do need others to step in and work together with us. maybe a town hall meeting. I don't know how we can go about doing that, but there are a lot of old people in the deaf community who are unable to write. I am a qualified LSM, Mexican Sign Language interpreter. There are a lot of people from Mexico that come in who are unable to read English, so I try to communicate with them. I try to encourage them to come and speak up. I'm happy to have an average of about 70 to 100 people every Friday that come in for the deaf breakfast seeking help or seeking advice, but I'd love to be able to work with somebody on addressing their concerns, their frustrations, and especially the VRI, the video relay interpreter, to be set up at the substations. I'd be really happy, and that would be a lot less work on me. So I'd like to thank you again for thinking of us, and hope that this feedback and the feedback Yenter's given you, he has really led this. But my focus is basically for the deaf people, and to get them basic resources. I love helping people. That is my community, and he has taken over a lot of that as my second place man. But I'd hope that people can get motivated to learn sign language, to work with the interpreters. And my final thought, as far as 35 years with the SAWS Water Board, they finally provided the interpreters to come in for us. And so I was so happy about that. And now that's something we'd been asking for a long time. So thank you all for stepping up and thinking and having love for your community, and seeing us as equals. But it's important that the 911 system is set up to help those who use a video phone and do not have electricity at that time.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Didi Balmeres, followed by Reed Williams.
Good afternoon, Didi Balmares, Clean Energy Advocate with Public Citizen. I'm speaking on agenda item number 10. I'm asking the board to approve the expansion of enrollment in the Affordability Discount Program to 150% of the federal poverty level for a period of 2 years. We all know that many of our neighbors are struggling every day just to stay afloat. They're having to choose between paying their CPS Energy bill or buying life-saving meds or even groceries. 2 rate increases in 2 years adds an additional strain on working-class families. Severe energy burden in San Antonio is a pervasive problem, and it's one that CPS Energy alone cannot solve, but programs like weatherization, and CPS Energy has a very strong STEP program, and the expansion of the ADP can certainly help the customers that need it the most. I know this is not a question that can be answered in this meeting or anytime soon, but I'd be curious to know that if y'all were to expand this program, how many more customers would you be able to help? And this is also would like to say that I appreciate everything that CPS Energy is doing to include the hearing impaired in these meetings. I work with vulnerable populations, and this is definitely one that y'all could help. So thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Reed Williams, followed by Diana Martinez.
Good afternoon. My name is Reed Williams. I don't represent anyone, and I'm speaking on item 7. I think it's absolutely the correct move to convert the CAC to a CIC. I believe it has a very good purpose in your mind. My comments are not about whether it should be or shouldn't be. It's just trying to improve the efficiency and from a cost standpoint and the effectiveness. I'll speak on 6 items: purpose, confidentiality, voting, remote meetings, and chair-elect and executive committee and subcommittees. First of all, the purpose is very important. I think y'all have given some good thought to this. I do believe that there is, in my mind, and it's probably just because I don't quite understand yet, a contradiction. If this is a community input, then I don't understand the bidirectional focus of it, because if it's the idea is that this committee will take ideas from CPS back to the community, I think that lowers the effectiveness of the community, and then it would be a citizens input output committee. So I think the flow needs to be from the citizens through this committee and into the board and management. Second, confidentiality agreement, that must be a holdover from the CAC, and hopefully that won't be necessary. Voting's always a big issue, but really all we're doing in these committees, whether it's Iraq or whatever, is we're just trying to show where there's consensus or not. And frankly, it's not bad if there is no consensus. It's just information. But I do believe that if you're going to try to do consensus, you need some fairly high percentage of all of the members, not some percentage of a small quorum. Because again, the authority sits at this table, the management has the power to run the utility, and all this is influence. And so if you can get combined power and influence, you're being fine. No, I would ask you that the remote meetings be allowed, and that there's no real need for a chair and a vice chair and executive committees. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Our final speaker is Diana Martinez.
Madam Chair and Board of Trustees, my name is Diana Aguirre Martinez, and I am the current chair of the CPS Energy Citizens Advisory Committee, or CAC. We want to thank you so much for the opportunity to allow us to speak today. On behalf of the current CAC, our committee would like to assure you that we were given the opportunity to discuss the changes to the bylaws that will change the CAC to the CIC at length with the rest of the CPS staff. This was a process, and we were afforded the chance to offer our suggestions for changes on more than one occasion during the development of the new bylaws. Those suggestions that were able to be included are part of the document you see before you today. We're proud of the work we have done as a CPS Energy Citizen Advisory Committee. We look forward to the evolution of our work with this Board of Trustees, CPS Energy, and the community that we all serve. And on a lighter note, I'd like to mention that all three of the CAC officers are women. So not only do we have a board of women, we have a CAC group that's all women as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. That was our last registered speaker. I will now turn the meeting back to Chair Gonzalez.
Thank you very much for item number 3 that just took place. The next, of course, is item number 4, which is the chair's remark. I would like to begin our meeting with the following. So just a friendly reminder, it would be nice to see citizens at our evening public input session at 5:30 after following this meeting. Again, this was something we implemented because often we hear here during the day session that sometimes these hours are not conducive to those who have to work. I have to say, I've been fairly disappointed that we've had very little participation. We will continue to find constructive ways to meet you in your neighborhoods through town halls and through working through any committee that we may have. But again, if you can make it this afternoon, please do so. The first evening public input session will take place at 5:30. And again, just a friendly reminder, we've reduced them to 2 evening sessions, and we'll always encourage committee participation and for you to provide us feedback through various, again, channels of communication, whether in person or online. There's so many ways. This is a board that's engaged. This is a board that will be there for you in any way that we can. And you have a great staff that we're working with that will also be there for you as well. And just, again, as your chairman, I'm always available for direct feedback. Your input is very important to us. I want to start off by thanking Congressman Castro for securing $1 million for Casa Verde. Again, this is a really important securing of funding that's needed for Casa Verde Waterization Program. We talk a lot about finding ways to find sources of revenue, we've asked, and there's been a lot of push on finding ways to secure money outside of generating it from ratepayers. And this is a great example that when we do the right things, we can get leadership at all levels behind us. And this will, again, help so many families that could benefit from the Casa Verde Waterization Program. Again, this was part of a $10.6 million he secured through the fiscal year 2024 federal appropriation process to support the 13 San Antonio community projects. The additional funding will expand the reach and impact, again, as I stated earlier, of Casa Verde, or CPS Energy efficient program that provides energy-saving upgrades for limited income residents of San Antonio. This new funding is part of the Community Development Block Grant and will provide home repairs for 500 homes, which will make them eligible for weatherization. Thank you again for those of you who work directly with Congressman Castro's staff and for Congressman Castro securing this funding. There will be, again, a news release on this. I'm not sure board will be asked to participate. If you can, please do. I think it's important that we participate, and this is good news for the citizens of San Antonio. And again, thank you, Congressman Castro. Again, we just recently, and some of us are still celebrating Women's History Week. We just heard so many women who are proud to be at the table. We just talked about how even the current committee has 3 women leading. And again, when we celebrate Women's History Week, it's about us being inclusive. It's really about us all collectively working together. But at the end of the day, it's been a hard road for women to participate in. So I'm really happy to see locally and through governance and participation more women. So according to, again, Women in the Workplace 2023 report, only 28% of women work in C-suite roles, compared to CPS, where 44% of leadership team is female. So again, congratulations to making those decisions. And I want to add, it's not really about just hiring to hiring. I think there's a lot of qualified women. I want to state that these 44% women are qualified to work here at CPS, and so thank you for that. Company-wide, there are women who serve in customer service, in engineering capacities, and including construction. So the diversification of where women lead is across the board when it comes to STEMs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I also am happy to see 2 female team members showcase for their work in construction. 2 weeks ago, Leti Ortiz, a foreman, and Miranda Mechaca, an operator, were part of a team formed by Holt Caterpillar, or Holt Cat, to compete in the first of its kind competition hosted by Caterpillar Inc. in North Carolina. They showcased their skills operating heavy construction equipment, with safety always serving as the backbone of their work. And I will tell you, I just got back from CERA Week, for those of you who may not be familiar with CERA Week, and there was a couple of facts that resonated with me. Texas has received most of, they received a hydrogen hub. They've also have the most billionaires investing in Texas. Texas is heavily invested for renewables and a lot of innovation work, projects. But what does that mean? That means there will be more competition for the employees that we just highlighted. There's going to be a demand for steel workers, a demand for construction workers, which means that there's going to be a fight for talent while they're building all these infrastructures. And so it's important that we retain our talent and know that it's not just about white-collar jobs, but it's also about blue-collar jobs, and that we just be aware that there will be a lot of competition for Texas talent. A lot of just talent across the board. But again, congratulations to Leti and for Miranda, and of course, thanking Holt Caterpillar for their innovative way of promoting, again, qualified, skilled individuals such as them. Uri, did you want to add something?
We will have Letty and Miranda at the next board meeting to recognize.
And I think that's amazing. Miranda finished 7th, Letty finished 8th, but they finished number 1 in our hearts. So congratulations. It is, again, women like Letty and Miranda. These are the females here today. And of course, I would like to again highlight Dr. Romero and those of you who provide support to us. Every day, you make me proud, and I couldn't be happier to be working with all of you at all levels. The other thing I would like to do, it was mentioned by Henrietta. This is my 5th year, I think. I think we only during COVID, so maybe it's 4 years that I had the privilege to march along many CPS employees for Cesar Chavez Day. It was never about grapes, as we say. It's always been about being inclusive. And this is something that I'm really proud that CPS continues to work at. So those are my chair remarks. And then I think we're going to be celebrating Easter, so happy Easter for those of you who celebrate that. Please enjoy that time with your family. And that's it. So again, congratulations to Leticia and to Miranda and for all the women that work at CPS. Keep up the good work. And then we're going to go ahead and move to item number 5, which will be approval of consent items. That is payment to the city for February 2024, B, minutes from January regular board meeting held on February the 5th. C, procurement items, professional services, engineering services for electric distribution planning. Richard Medina is here, and so those will be the items for consent agenda.
I move that we approve consent agenda, approval of consent agenda, item A, B, and C.
Second.
There was a Dr. Mackey and a second by Dr. Romero. Can we go ahead and call, open for discussion? Mr. Steen, would you like to discuss any items? Okay, anybody else? Okay, on that note, then can we go ahead and request roll call?
Trustee Dr. Mackey? Trustee Steen? Yes. Mayor? Yes. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Chair? Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. So now we're going to go ahead and move over to regular agenda items. And so on that note, we have A, Technology Resiliency Committee that took place or was held on February the 19th, 2024. At this time, I would just like, if we can just go ahead, let me make sure, I'm sorry, I lost my notes, there's so many things going on. Does the board have any questions or comments on the Technology Resilient Committee that took place on the 2nd? And if not, then in lieu of reading the committee reports aloud, the following report is available in your book for review. Any comments, any questions from the board? And if not, it will be accepted as submitted. We will now move to item number 7. Committee bylaws. Okay, now we're going to open that, go ahead to discussion. Ms. Ash, I'm
I
sorry.
move to approve
I'm
the
sorry.
committee bylaws as stipulated in the amendments, proposed amendments.
I believe we have to do a presentation first, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we don't have to.
No, we've got to do
Ashley
a
is
second.
welcome to do it, but I think that we can also, the way I understood that, sir, is you're moving to approve the bylaws as the underlying motion, and you'll accept the amendments as friendly amendments to the
That's what I said.
motion.
We
Okay.
haven't had a second yet.
Second, open for discussion.
To start discussion, ma'am, would I suggest that I walk us through
Yes.
the proposed amendments? And just as a reminder for the group,
Yes, I would recommend that.
the bylaws that were proposed, if we could go ahead and bring up the presentation on the screens, just so it's available for the public. You can take it to the last slide of the presentation.
Yes, if you could introduce Amendment 1 once we go into the slides.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead and proceed to the amendment, slide 1. And again, for clarity, for those listening, and for those here, the bylaws that were posted with the board packet are what is proposed to be approved, and we're going to go through 10 proposed amendments as drafted. Could you go to amendment slide 1, please? As we pull it up on screen, you can see that the top half is the current language, the bottom half is the proposed change for clarification. This proposed amendment was proposed by Trustee Steen. So Trustee Steen, I will ask you if you have any explanation to provide.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. This amendment was suggested by former Rate Advisory Committee Chair Reed Williams. The CIC is, as its formal name suggests, is a community input group, and members should not be tasked with promoting CPS Energy positions. Making CIC members advocates could reduce their effectiveness, as the public might perceive them as not independent and unbiased. Primarily, it's the responsibility of CPS Energy and board leadership to promote CPS Energy positions. For example, will CIC members be expected to go out into the community and advocate for a new gas plant? Will they be asked to sell a base rate increase to the community? I think Mr. Williams' point, which he mentioned at the end of his remarks, is that this is a community input committee and not a community input and output committee. So I'll make the motion that we approve Amendment 1.
Ms. Ramirez, can you roll call on that?
Well, I'll ask if there is a
sorry,
second
there's-
to approve Amendment 1.
So just, can I ask a clarification? So the main motion is just on the amendments as proposed by staff, and then we're going to go through each of the,
No, I
It's
did
not
not make the
proposed
main
as
motion.
staff, it's been proposed by feedback.
No, I made the motion to I made the motion to approve the agenda item with all the proposed amendments,
all 10 of them.
all 10 of them.
What we decided, and for full transparency, we're gonna go one item by one, and we're gonna vote on each one.
Yes, so I want to make sure that I have clarity on the motion.
So, and also, could you just add additional clarity? So the way that it will work, again, we're gonna go through each item, and then these items, just to be clear, Mayor, and I hope she can clarify, everything that's being proposed was generated by feedback from the public and from the board. We're gonna go through each item. It will be open for discussion and then open for vote, and then we move on to the next one. Is that correct?
Yes, I want to clarify, though, because the bylaws as proposed in the presentation that we skipped are the bylaws that were posted online and sent to all of you in the materials. I need an underlying motion to approve those. And I thought that we clarified that as we go through these amendments, we'll vote on each of them one by one. Those that are approved will be considered friendly amendments to the underlying motion. Trustee Dr. Mackey, is that acceptable to you as the movement?
Mr. Steen?
Mayor, is that acceptable to you as the second?
Well, I saw the mayor react too. I'm trying to understand, because it sounded like Dr. Mackey's motion was to accept all these 10 amendments.
Yeah, at first, but I think it's fair. It's fine.
It was,
We'll just go
but
through
we're
each
just gonna, I'm, as your chairman, I think it's important. We worked really hard to make sure that the bylaws were posted. We wanted to increase transparency. We wanted to increase participation. So now we're gonna go publicly through every single one and then do a vote. Is that clear?
I have a motion to approve Amendment 1. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion on Amendment 1, or may I poll the trustees?
Dr. Romero, go ahead.
I understand what Reed's saying, and thank you for this, Reed, I appreciate it. I like it the original way, so I won't support this one. I think that to an extent, the CIC should be communicating back to the community. It doesn't mean they're trying to persuade people, but if they're just sharing information that they get in their position, I think that's a valuable service to the community. So I support the bi-directional. And I've read it a million times now, maybe not a million. I don't think it means, I just noticed board is misspelled unless we are now bards. We're going to need another amendment. But I support the, as it is, so I won't vote for this amendment.
I'm also going to speak, and I also won't vote for this amendment. I believe the natural process, let's not get confused over the title. The natural process of participation means there'll be an output. Everybody's an adult and a professional that's going to apply or serve. It's important. They're not there to replace governance. And I will tell you, there was earlier, I think I heard that it is our responsibility to be out there in the community. I will tell you, very little of us are out there in the community attending meetings. I've been very active in attending meetings because it's important that I get direct feedback. So it's nice to have others also be out there in the community and communicating what takes place at CPS. So I'll be voting no also.
Chair, would you like me to poll? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to.
Wait, unless there's further discussion. Did you want to say something, Mackie? Okay, we're good to, ready to vote.
So we have a motion and a second in favor of Amendment 1. Trustee Dr. Mackey, do you vote to approve Amendment number 1?
No.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor? Vice Chair?
No.
Chair?
No.
Amendment 1 fails. We're going to go next to Amendment 2.
So I have a point of order. I think that I heard Dr. Mackey say, I would like to make a motion to approve these bylaws with all 10 amendments. Did you not say that?
Yes.
Okay.
After clarification, we moved into this discussion. I have the right as a chairman, and we've made that decision already.
We clarified it twice. Now there's been a now there's
We
been
can't go
clarification
back.
that it's the other way. So Trustee Dr. Mackey, I will ask you again for clarity. Were you moving to approve the bylaws with all amendments?
You asked me that?
Yes.
Yes, that was my first.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second to approve the bylaws with all amendments? Hearing no second, motion fails.
Now reverse engineering it?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay,
If I'm understanding, there are 10 amendments, and you're saying, and you're moving to approve all.
if it's
Now we're
possible for
hijacking the
Board Secretary, if I
conversation.
could facilitate, there was an objection to the procedure. I asked, there was a motion to approve the bylaws with all amendments. I asked for a second. There was none. The motion failed. You're saying that you wanted to second, but you couldn't step in. So let's consider Steen's a valid second. Is there any discussion to approve the bylaws as proposed with all amendments included? Hearing no discussion, we'll poll.
Can I just make a point of order real quick? I heard Dr. Mackey's original motion to be approval with all of the amendments. In subsequent discussion, we asked if it was okay if we just clarified that to be the base motion so we could go through each of these amendments. And you said yes, and I said yes. So this whole discussion about what was the motion for is moot, because you're right, he did make that original motion, but he subsequently clarified that. So let's just move forward, because we don't need to have a second motion
Agree, sir.
on something that was already clarified.
Thank you.
We'll now address Amendment 2. If you could pull Amendment 2 onto the screen. Amendment 2 was also proposed by Trustee Steen, so I'll ask if you have explanation, sir.
This amendment was suggested by Mr. Williams. As our former RAC chair, he has extensive years-long experience with issues of confidentiality and conflict of interest, and I believe in this instance his advice should be heeded. So I'll make the motion to approve Amendment 2.
Is there a second?
Hearing no second, Amendment 2 fails. If we can proceed to Amendment 3, if you could pull that up on the screen for me.
Can I just make a point of information, because I do think this deserves a little bit of discussion, even though we didn't have a motion. My understanding is that this is a fundamental question about this confidentiality agreement. It's not about us, CPS Energy, seeking to conceal information. There is competitive economic information that is available, and only through a confidentiality agreement can be accessed by members of the public through this committee. That was a fundamental issue with the original RAC. And so it's really a question of how do we want this CIC, what function do we want it to play?
Aren't we?
If there's no competitive information shared with this committee, they're going to be limited in what kind of recommendations they can provide to the board. If we want it to be more of a superficial input committee, that's fine. But what we heard from RAC members repeatedly is that in order to make well-founded, educated recommendations to the board, they need to have access to all of the information and none of it withheld. This is the only way we can do that. That's how I understood this issue, and that's why I support those members of the public being able to access all of our competitive information with the right safeties in place.
If I'm not correct, won't they have, isn't that an item that'll also be discussed, that they will have access to the executive session?
Yes, with the provision of a confidentiality agreement that allows management to share certain confidential information in executive session.
Yeah, and let me just say, that is by exception, not by rule. So, again, they're not recommending, they're not voting on policy. They're taking information from us and they're making recommendations back to the board based on what they see. So from time to time, they might need to go into executive session, and this gives them that chance. Just like the RAC. RAC went into executive session, didn't go to an executive session. They had specific, access to information, especially regarding the generation plan, to help deliberate. So that is all this does, is it gives us the ability to show them things that might inform their feedback.
Could we back up that slide up to Amendment 2? Yeah, I just noticed that, note that it says note at the bottom, confidential information would no longer be distributed. And I think that's critical to understanding this. I don't know if it's possible for Reed Williams to explain this to us, but
No,
he certainly has
we've
years
made
of
it- We've already
experience.
made a decision. I believe that item has already been passed. So we're moving, we're
I
now
think-
just,
I
the
think-
mayor had some feedback. He had his feedback. I asked her to build upon where, again, there'll be an opportunity for them to read sensitive data. That's been already discussed, and now we're moving to the next item. Three. Thank you.
If you could pull Amendment 3 slide back up. Amendment 3 was proposed by Trustee Steen. Again, you can see the current language on top, the proposed language on the bottom. Trustee Steen, if you would like to explain.
Yes, ma'am. This is an important issue. When a recommendation of the board is being considered, the procedure used by the RAC should be emulated. The chair should be required to reach a consensus based on the principle that the decision is made only when everyone agrees or at least accepts it. If this can't be accomplished and a vote is needed, the outcome shall be decided by 60%, that is 12 members of the CIC. For routine votes, regular procedure will be used, majority at a meeting where a quorum is present. As Article 2, Section 9 is presently written, it's possible that just six members could vote in a recommendation, not exactly a credible reflection of community support.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I made the motion.
Is there a
Second.
discussion?
I do have a point. I mean, I do think that if the CIC is making a record recommendation on behalf of the whole body, it does require a quorum to do that. What I think Mr. Williams said, though, in addition to that, is very important for us to recognize, and that is that not everything, in fact, not anything, requires a recommendation. So if there is deliberation that reaches impasse on the RAC, it is not essential for this body to function in order for us to produce a recommendation from the CIC. So on any given issue. But I do think if they are speaking as the CIC, it requires a quorum to be present.
I did, and let me just make sure I heard this right. Mr. Steen, you referenced the word chair, correct? Chair, like chair, there's a chair that leads the meeting when you first started your statement? I'm going some, I just wanted to,
Just looking to see, you're saying that I mentioned the word chair?
yes. And the only reason why I asked that question is, the only other thing I would like to highlight is,
Yes, I
so
did.
the only reason why I'm bringing that up is, whatever decision y'all make, keep in mind there's also a recommendation not to have a chair and a vice chair.
That's not correct.
Are you sure?
Yes. But going back, yes, what I said on Amendment 3 is the chair, meaning the chair of the CIC.
Right, I just want to make sure.
And that's the way it was done with the RAC, should be required. It's mandatory language to reach a consensus. And then if you can't reach a consensus, then it goes to a vote.
Okay, but thank you for clarifying that. Any other discussion? Hey, Dr. Romero.
I'm just getting a little bit confused now. If we don't change it, Section 9 says at which a quorum is present, the act of a majority at which a quorum is present. Now it seems like we're starting to talk about votes versus acts, but there's no difference. An act is a vote. So this means that when they vote, or whatever it is they're going to do, there needs to be a quorum present, right? As is.
As is.
Okay.
There needs to be a quorum present, and then the majority of the quorum present can vote and take action on behalf of the CIC.
So then I just don't see how not going to 60% means that you could get down to whatever number it is because less than a quorum can be there. So am I missing something?
Well, I can walk you through it, I think. There are 19 members. A quorum is, it's either 50% or 50% plus one, so that would be 10. All right, and then you have the vote, and what's a majority of 10? It's 6.
Okay, got it. I'm not supporting it, though. I think 50% is still better.
Roll call?
Trustee Dr. Mackey?
No.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
No.
Chair?
Vote for you, vote for it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For clarity, Vice Chair, what was your
Sorry, I'm
vote?
sorry, I was just excited. Go ahead.
No.
Sorry about Dr. Romero. Please, it's your vote.
Chair?
At least we have a sense of humor. Oh, no, it's me again. No.
Yes.
No.
Amendment fails. If we can move to amendment number 4 and pull it up on the screen. Amendment 4, again, the current language is on top, the proposed changes on the bottom. Trustine, as you propose this, would you like to explain?
This Amendment 4 was also suggested by Reed Williams based on his many years' experience as our RAC chair. He guided the RAC through a number of contentious issues, and his advice on this should be followed.
What is his advice?
Just stick to the protocol. Is there a motion?
I so move.
A second?
Hearing no second, the motion fails, and Amendment 4 fails. We'll move to Amendment 5. Amendment 5 is on the screen. You can see the current language and the proposed language. This amendment was proposed by the Vice Chair Romero. Vice Chair Romero, if you'd like to explain.
I'm not completely bent on this, but I feel like it's not clear without this change. And so I suggested the change to clarify in the direction of in-person. I think that whichever way we go with this, we should make it clear, because I think without having this in, it was kind of left to the chair or the executive committee to decide. I think after having seen the RAC operate, that I understand that sometimes people can't be there in person, but it completely changes the dynamics. And it's not just that group, it's others. I just see that it's so much better when they are held in person. So I will make a motion in favor of Amendment 5.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I will only tell you again, we've extended an array of different ways for public input. We haven't made any changes to the existing committee, 25 years in place. We need people that are going to be engaged. We have a lot of priorities, and I believe it's important that it is in person. Any further discussion? If we can go ahead and do roll call.
Chair Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yeah. Oops, sorry.
Chair?
Yes.
Motion carries. Amendment 5 is approved. We'll move to Amendment 6, if you can pull it up on screen. The current language is up on screen. The proposal is to eliminate the subsection. Trustee Steen proposed the amendment. Trustee Steen, if you'd care to explain.
This amendment to eliminate altogether Section 6B of Article 4 was suggested by Reed Williams. His reasoning is in line with the rationale behind Amendment 1, encouraging CIC members to communicate results to customers, and the community puts them, encouraging CIC members to communicate results to customers in the community puts them in the role of advocating for CPS Energy, which is the job of management and board leadership. This kind of communication could actually compromise the effectiveness of CIC, as the public may not view them as open-minded and impartial. But since Amendment 1 failed, I don't know, I don't think this one's going to get very far.
But again, it's been part of the process, so we need to continue. So is there, you have a motion, Mr. Steen?
I'll move only to have it die, but go ahead.
Okay. Is everybody okay? Any further discussion?
Is there a second?
A second? I don't think there was a first.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Then it's,
Hearing none, Amendment 6 fails, and we'll move to Amendment 7. If you could pull Amendment 7 on the screen. Again, the current language and the proposed language is on the screen. Trustee Steen proposed the amendment. Trustee Steen, if you'd like to explain.
All right, this amendment was suggested by both Reed Williams and myself. This is a streamlining issue that would allow the CIC to function more efficiently. It was a huge challenge, but Mr. Williams very effectively chaired the RAC for 2+ years. He knows how to make a committee functional and productive, and again, his advice should be heeded. And I might point out that this board functions just fine with a chair and a vice chair. A chair-elect wouldn't suit this board. Why would we create this position for the CIC? And I'll move to approve this
is there a
amendment.
second? Discussion? Mayor?
Sure, on first reading, the bylaws as presented, not as amended, but as presented, it confused me also. What's the difference between the vice chair and the chair-elect? So I think this is a clarifying amendment. I support it.
Dr. Mackey?
I'm just still a little confused on what
Okay, can the mayor ask for clarification?
the application on this.
So this amendment would eliminate the position of chair-elect from the committee.
It's the recommendation.
That is the effect of Amendment 7. So supporting Amendment 7 would eliminate chair-elect position.
Okay.
And just for clar-
Historically, that organization has always had a chair-elect.
The CAC has operated with all the officers that are included in the bylaws as presented since its formation.
That's the way I support it right there. I support that.
Okay, so there's always an importance to succession planning, so there's a lot of value in having a chair-elect.
Okay, go ahead.
That would be my only feedback. Dr. Romero's going to speak.
I want to support this because I just feel like, I know it seems obvious that you would be the vice chair, and then you would be the chair-elect, and then you would be the chair, but it's not in here, and I don't want to make any other changes. So I would support I would support this change. It just makes it cleaner.
Rudy's going to go ahead and speak.
Well, in effect, that would bring it in line with kind of our governance model on the board. The chair, the vice chair would in essence, become the chair.
And getting back to
But it's not
succession.
necessarily like that because you have to have a nominating committee to nominate that. So it doesn't just happen like that.
Yeah.
There's no nominating committee on the CAC. The
Yeah.
CAC members right now operate amongst themselves to elect a vice chair and a chair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I
Go ahead,
support it.
Mr.
I'm
St-
fine.
Okay, go ahead and do roll call.
Yes, ma'am. So Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes. Oops, keep going
Vice
ahead.
Chair?
Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair?
Yeah, you already have a chair-elect. We're good.
Chair, I need your vote.
Maybe that's an indication.
I still need your vote, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Amendment 7 is approved, and we will proceed to Amendment 8. If we could pull that on screen. Again, you can see the current language at the top. This is similar to the last amendment. The proposed change is to eliminate the executive committee. So the change in the document would be to eliminate this section. This amendment was proposed by Trustee Steen. If you'd like to explain, sir.
Eliminating the CIC Executive Committee is Reed Williams' idea, supported by me. This is another streamlining issue. Creation of an executive committee is superfluous, bureaucratic, and will strain CPS Energy resources. Tension could be created if CIC members feel the executive committee is encroaching on or taking over their responsibilities.
Trustee Steen, may I treat that as a motion to approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion fails.
Can I ask a point of information, I guess?
Yes, I didn't mean to cut us off too soon.
So because we have eliminated chair-elect, then this section will be revised to include chair, vice chair, immediate past chair.
Yes, sir. The effect of Amendment 7 and all of the amendments, if we eliminate a section, will eliminate all references to that in the document. If we can proceed to Amendment 9. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did I skip over everything for 8? No.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that influence. Let's not skip.
If we can move to Amendment 9. Amendment 9, again, you can see the current language and the proposed change. This amendment was proposed by Vice Chair Romero, if you'd like to explain.
I just feel that we're working in partnership with this group, and I would feel uncomfortable if the subcommittees would just start defining issues to study when it may not be something that we could support. It may not be something that it's even legal to consider. So I just think adding in consultation with the board will keep us in alignment. So I will make a motion to approve Amendment 9.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? May I go ahead and pull the trustees?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Romero? Chair Gonzalez?
Did it right this time. Yes.
Amendment 9 is approved, and we'll proceed to our last amendment, Amendment 10. You can see again the current language, and the proposed changes would add a paragraph 4 as it reads below. Trustee Steen suggested this amendment. Trustee Steen, if you would like to explain.
This amendment is supported by both Mr. Williams and me. The language is being added to make it clear that subcommittees cannot by themselves make recommendations. The purpose of a subcommittee is to take a deep dive on issues, and in doing so, facilitate the understanding of all the CIC members. So here's something to think about. Under the current language, there's nothing to prohibit 4 individuals, a majority of the 7 subcommittee members, from making a recommendation. Or if only 4 members, a quorum, were present at a meeting, a subcommittee majority of 3 could recommend.
Is there a second motion?
Second.
Discussion. Clarification, please, just so we can open the discussion. You can go ahead and clarify the intent of the recommendation from Mr. Steen.
Yes, I think that the purpose of this was just to ensure that it's very clear to everyone that if there is a recommendation that is going from the CIC to the full board, that that vote has to come from the CIC, not any of their subcommittees.
Okay, if there's no discussion, we'll go ahead and go with vote.
Trustee Dr. Mackey? Yes. Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor? Yes. Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Amendment 10 is approved. So just for process then, we have the underlying motion by Dr. Mackey that was seconded by the mayor. That was a motion to approve the bylaws as presented, and we will now include amendments 5, 7, 9, and 10 as approved amendments. So again, you are voting to approve the presented bylaws, including amendments 5, 7, 9, and 10. There's already been a motion and a second, so we will now go to any further discussion.
The only thing is, we need to make sure we correct that spelling error on, I think it was number one. It's correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
it's
was
right
on
in
the
the-
slide.
I just want to make sure.
You raised a good issue, though. I would ask if there's no objection from the board to be allowed to correct any typos, grammatical, or formatting errors that I find while incorporating these amendments.
Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry.
May I go ahead and pull the trustees? Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor? Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez? Now
Yes,
you've got me doing it.
that's okay. And again, I want to thank all our
Motion
trustees.
carries.
Yeah, for making this public, transparent, and let's move on to more important things.
I think we're now ready for agenda item 8.
Yes. If we can go ahead and go, item number 8, FY 2024 Year-End Performance Recap. Corey and Elena Ball.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez, and good afternoon, trustees. So today's presentation will be jointly done by myself and Elena. Collectively, we're going to provide a preview of our year-end operational and financial performance for the trustees. So starting with our financial performance, much of the same story that we've shared all year long. Overall, this was a really good financial year for CPS Energy. That's primarily driven by the performance of our wholesale sales. And this is a significant fact because the sales from the wholesale market, which is another way of saying sales to the rest of ERCOT, those are revenues that CPS Energy earns from the state of Texas and not directly from our local customers. So that's beneficial for us. And as we've discussed in earlier meetings, this benefits our local customers through the lower rate requests that we had earlier this year. It benefits our community through the additional strategic spending on targeted reliability and resiliency projects to improve ultimately system performance. And at the end of the day, as noted on this slide, it still resulted in better than planned financial outcomes for CPS Energy. So looking at our flow of funds, there are a few highlights to share on this document. And as I noted, the wholesale revenues net of fuel was above our forecast by $190 million, as noted there. And again, that enabled several of the additional items we were able to fund this year. The other note was that we saw significantly lower fuel costs this year, mainly attributable to the lower cost of natural gas. That resulted in paying $415 million less this year relative to plan on fuel, and that's a direct pass-through savings for our customers that they were able to benefit throughout the course of this year. The other note here is just some of the examples of where we spent a portion of our additional unanticipated wholesale revenues, and they were in very tangible areas, and both I think myself and Elena will touch on some of these. But we increased spending in terms of our targeted tree trimming. That has a direct benefit to reliability. We also pulled forward some additional maintenance on some of our older plants. They ran hard all summer long, and we ensured that they were ready for the winter season and got a head start on some additional work going into this summer. And in terms of looking at our R&R balance and in terms of having sufficient liquidity for operations, we were also over plan relative to the amount of dollars collected through the R&R. What this does is have a carry forward benefit for us as we go into this year and relieve some future year pressures associated with our capital plan. So at the end of the day, the story of this year is that it yielded a lot of benefits for our customers directly. It allowed for more system improvements than we had planned, and it also enabled us to finish the year with financial metrics better than planned. So on the next slide, you'll recognize our standard financial metrics. Kind of big picture, this year's ending financial position, it's really going to enable us to go into our upcoming year and really the coming decade rather on surer footing and take on the current challenges, the global uncertainties, and ultimately put CPS Energy on a strong foundation to support our generation plan, our Vision 2027, and the heavy investment that we've talked about for the many months. Specifically, when looking at this slide, our coverage ratio was notably above plan, again, primarily driven by the one-time lift in wholesale sales, as I mentioned earlier. So 2.21 relative to our 1.62 target, so good for the year. As a reference point, last year we were at 1.89, so this is one of the highest ADSCs we've seen in a while. Also notable is our debt capitalization ratio. That was lower than planned, so that's very good. The additional one-time revenues allowed us to borrow a little less than our plan and support the capital spending that we had and we saw an improvement to equity because of the strong year we had. And then lastly, our days cash on hand was improved again to plan. Same reason, driven by those additional revenues. That translates to a little over $1 billion in liquid cash with that target. And last year, we finished as a reference point at 166 days. So across the board, strong financial year in terms of our metrics. Guess I'll note before I leave this slide, while the story is good for this past year, it's going to remain important for us to keep in mind that there is significant volatility associated with the wholesale market and ERCOT broadly. So while this year's past performance was positive, it's important to remember that these revenues, they're never guaranteed. So with that in mind, as we continue to look forward and we forecast, we don't plan on receiving those excess dollars like we did this year into our future forecasts. However, much like this year, if the market materializes in a manner that is beneficial, we will redeploy those revenues for the benefit of our customers, much like we did this year. And then just a couple more slides before I turn it over. There's definitely a number of things on this slide. Just a few call-outs to talk about kind of the successes and from this year. Right there in the middle, we successfully qualified for a resiliency grant for $30 million. And those are 4 items that were in our plan anyways, effectively reducing the revenue requirements that we need to collect from our local customers. So that's a really excellent highlight for this year. You've heard Rudy mentioned it in previous meetings, but in the bottom left-hand corner there, we talk about executing on over 1,000 miles of tree trimming. That is an all-time high, and that is very significant and has a direct correlation to reliability. The other item that I'd note up in the right-hand corner, we were recognized earlier this year by the financial community for our innovative financing structures that provided millions in savings for our local community. So it's a really great nod to our broader team here on continuing to look for opportunities to add value. And we're continuing to execute on our pursuit of renewable resources, as noted on the left-hand side there, with 150 new megawatts signed and under contract this year. And obviously, there's more to come. So my last slide here before I turn it over, in terms of past due accounts, the takeaway continues to be we continue to make incremental progress on bringing down all parts of our past due balances. Our customer teams, they continue to methodically reach out to our at-risk customers to get them on programs if they qualify and payment plans that work for them. As noted on this slide here, we have over $86 million of our past due accounts on some form of payment plans, and that is progress. And as time goes on, we'll see that number actually go down as balances get paid off. We've seen an overall 20% decline in our overall past due balance from its peak, and our trend has been consistently moving downward. So at the end of the day, as we've mentioned before, while we would all love to see a faster pace, we are seeing steady and continuous progress thanks to our customer teams and their continuing community outreach that they've been doing. And with that, I will turn it over to Elena Ball.
I'm sorry. Again, there's a lot of good information. Can you stress again that a lot of additional data is in the appendix? Can you just reiterate that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of additional information, both operational and financial. There's 5-year trends on some of the metrics in there as well.
I think it's important that all trustees note that. We want to make sure that information was included in case you have additional questions. If not today, following up, he'll be available because there is a lot of information. Thank you. Elena, I'm sorry for that, but thank you.
That's great. And thank you, Corey. So if I could please have Board Relations advance to the next slide. Oh, okay, thank you. So this is our scorecard that we have been sharing with the Board of Trustees throughout the year. In summary, 2024, as fiscal year 2024, as Corey mentioned, was a very strong financial year. But I would also note that we achieved the majority of our metrics that we set out for as an organization. There were three metrics that we did miss the mark on. The first was outage frequency. We measure something called SAFE, which is essentially during a year, on average, how many times was a customer out during that year? And so our outage frequency came in a little bit higher than our target. We were targeting 0.98 and actually ended the year at 1.01. And as we look through the data, that was predominantly due to a higher number of storm-related events this year. And so the other two metrics that we missed, they were intentional. We're calling them strategic variances, and Corey touched on this. As we saw the wholesale market settlements coming in so favorably, we made a deliberate decision as a team to reinvest some of those dollars into our system. Corey mentioned the three big groups of investment, and really it was about putting in additional dollars into plant maintenance. Our plants were highly reliable through the summer, which is what availed us of these wholesale revenue opportunities. So we want to reinvest in the plants to ensure we can continue to have high levels of reliability, in particular in the summer and winter seasons. Additionally, as was mentioned, we also recognize the critical nature of vegetation management. Rudy has stressed this multiple times, but it's a real testament to the leadership and to his focus on ensuring that we're reliable. We've tripled the amount of tree trimming that we've conducted in a year, and that does a lot of good things for us. Obviously, it helps with reliability, it reduces fire risk, and overall keeps us ahead of the curve relative to power quality and power reliability. So you'll see our O&M budget and our capital budget did have higher levels of spend, but that was intentional in nature. Additionally, on the next slide, you'll see all of the measures that we rated ourselves on this past year. And wanted to highlight on this graph, we have essentially the measure, the frequency of the measure, whether it's a calendar or fiscal year type of measurement, how we're measuring it. And most importantly, if you'll look in the far right column, you'll see our year-end actual, our year-end target, and the status. And so with that, I'll pause and take any questions from the Board of Trustees relative to our enterprise measure results.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. What else are you going to cover?
For this presentation, I'm going to turn it back over to Corey on our financing plan, but this is all I'm going to cover.
Yeah, then I have some comments.
Please go ahead, Mr. Steele.
Mr. Kaczynski and Ms. Ball, thank you for your presentation today and for visiting with me in advance to review this material. Please put up slide 3. CPS Energy's fiscal year 2024 financial performance was considerably better than planned because of unexpected occurrences, predominantly higher wholesale revenues. The wholesale revenues of $190 million were made when CPS Energy sold excess electricity into the grid during periods of high demand. And as Mr. Kaczynski mentioned, it's money we made that didn't come out of the pockets of our customers. You refer to this in your presentation as a one-time lift in revenue. And I want to emphasize the word one time, the words one time. For perspective, the last 3 years prior to 2023, CPS Energy came in below forecasted wholesale revenues, which created financial strain. The fluctuation of wholesale revenues prevents us from relying on them, and I don't think I'll get any disagreement from management or this board about the one-time uncertain nature of wholesale revenues. So please put up slide 19. As you can see at the bottom of the first column, for fiscal year 2024, again, which ended January 31st, 2024, management planned for a $20.8 million loss, and moving over to the next column, ended up with a $242.6 million gain. This is to the good, but again, it can't be stressed enough that CPS Energy can't plan or count on wholesale revenues of this magnitude. And while I can appreciate the tailwinds we enjoyed in fiscal year 2024, they don't fundamentally alter my continuing concern about CPS Energy's financial health. So please put up slide 9. Now let's turn Please put up slide 9. Now let's turn to the company's fiscal year 2024 scorecard final results. On the face of it, this looks like a turnaround, whereas for fiscal year 2023, CPS Energy only achieved 10 of its 16 enterprise metrics. For fiscal year 2024, CPS Energy ostensibly achieved 15 out of 16, but let's dig deeper. To begin with, and Ms. Ball alluded to this, 2 enterprise metrics, O&M budget and capital budget gross of CIAC, where targets were not achieved, and she's acknowledging it in the meeting, but instead of acknowledging in this chart, they've been characterized, and this is a recent term, as strategic variances. These are the 5th and 6th boxes in the top row where the dollar amounts are lime green in color. I was told that when year-end results were tallied, if targets weren't met, these 2 measured would be labeled forthrightly not achieved. And Mr. Garza, you were part of that 3-way conversation after I asked for specific confirmation that although in the interim you were going to introduce a new term, strategic variance, at the end of the year, management would either achieve the metric or not. And Mr. Gardner responded, that's correct. And so if we're going to be above board, these 2 metrics were not, in fact, not achieved and should be characterized that way in CPS Energy's annual report card. And by the way, you're welcome to place an asterisk next to each one and provide your explanation in a footnote, but in all candor, the targets were not achieved.
Trustee Steen, throughout the year last year, as we recognized wholesale revenues were higher than we anticipated, I was very clear with the board that there's no reason to cut back on spend that is necessary when we have the money to pay for it. So a strategic variance is a variance that we are paying for based on our performance of the organization. So, I mean, you can characterize them as misses, but they were missed on purpose because those were reinvestments back into the system that, ensured that we had a very clean run during the winter, which we did, and that we were investing in reliability, which is where those dollars spent. So, so if you want to call them misses, that's fine, but, it was by intention.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Next, I want to provide detail on one enterprise metric where it can clearly be seen how the goalposts were moved closer for fiscal year 2024. This is customer satisfaction, and it's the 7th box in the top row. Please put up slide 36. Now, this metric, where higher is better, is measured not on fiscal year, but on a calendar year basis. And on the chart on the right, you can see where the targets from calendar year 2019 through calendar year 2022 were set at, and you watch that line at the top. You see it in 2019, it was 78.2, and then it was 80.8, and then set for 79 2 years in a row. And so after falling short in 2022, management decided to drop the target for calendar year 2023 to 75. And guess what? That lower, easier target was achieved. But is this right? I consider that in all fairness, a score of 77.6 should land this metric in the not achieved category. Please return to slide 9. Now, I can demonstrate that the same moving of the goalpost closer was done in regard to debt capitalization, the 5th box on the 2nd row, and was done in fiscal year 2024 and in previous years in regard to senior lien bond rating, the 6th box on the 2nd row. In the interest of time, I'll not go into the details on these 2, although I can if requested. Interestingly enough, if one adds up just the not achieved metrics I cited above, the number is 6, same as last year. Thus, it can be argued that CPS Energy's overall fiscal year 2024 score, before it was tinkered with, was 10 out of 16, which equals last year's disappointing score on CPS Energy's report card. But CPS Energy has come up with a solution to get out of its metric slump. These 16 enterprise measures as set forth on the screen have essentially been abandoned. Management's response to unsatisfactory performance has been to jettison the Tier 1/enterprise metrics we've been using for so many years. The new enterprise metrics to be used starting this fiscal year 2025 have been halved in number to 8. Within the 8, only 2 of the 16 we've been using for many years remain. And of the 6 areas where CPS Energy's targets were not achieved in fiscal year 2023, so there were 6 areas where our targets were not achieved in fiscal year 2023, and only 1 is still standing when you get to the 8. Overall, I'm disappointed that the leadership of this once strong company, instead of low scores on our annual report as a motivation to try even harder, has elected to soften expectations, lower targets, and even toss aside metrics when it's been challenging to meet their targets. It's called redefining success, and regrettably, CPS Energy is actively engaged in it. And now I just have one final comment, Ms. Gonzalez. Now, please put up slide 7. Mr. Kaczynski, I note that the as-of date on this slide is January 31, 2024. Do you have any more recent data?
We do, and I think it's trending positive, but I'll have to get with you offline, sir.
All right. And so I want to ask you that then, as of January 31, 2024, what percentage of our residential customers are past due? And I'm saying the residential customers.
Slightly under 20%.
Okay. And how much in dollars are residential customers in arrears?
As noted on the slide, the $45 million is the amount of at-risk customers that we are focusing on that are past due, that are not on any plan and at risk of disconnection.
No, but I asked a broad question. How many of our residential customers are in arrears? And that would include people on plans.
Yeah, 20%. So you'd add the 91 and the 72.
So how much is it in dollars?
45 plus 86.
Well, on the subject of past due accounts, management continues to downplay an intractable problem that's been going on for years. I remember Mr. Garza assuring us years ago that it would be under control in a matter of months. Regrettably, the presentation that's on the screen is formatted to de-emphasize the problem. In fact, as of January 31, 2024, the latest data available, 196,000 CPS Energy customers are in arrears to the tune of $163 million. I'll go ahead and repeat that for emphasis. Currently, 196,000 CPS Energy customers are in arrears in the amount of $163 million. Any business should be deeply disturbed by something like this, and yet management's response is, well, it got as high as $208 million, so we're making great progress. I continue to be disappointed. And by the way, Ms. Hardwick told us at our December 18th, 2023 board meeting that before this steady increase in past due accounts started 3 or so years ago, the number of past due customers was typically around 15,000, and the amount in arrears was around 5 million. So, Mr. Garza, with all due respect, why aren't you making much more progress in leading us back to those days?
Before you answer that question, is there any other trustees that have any feedback? Or Dr. Romero?
Couple of questions. When did we change the customer satisfaction? Or can you just run over that again?
Well, when we're going through our annual identification of metrics and targets, we discuss as a team where our current performance is, where we want to get to, and set measures and targets based on that delta, that goal. And we're also externally, everywhere we can, externally benchmarking our performance against our peer sets to ensure that our system is, top quartile reliability, that our bills are affordable, and in particular with customer satisfaction, we benchmark ourselves through an organization called Escalante, and we also do receive J.D. Power results as well. I'm planning, let me, if you don't mind, let me add one item here. Customer sentiment is not just about a feeling of a moment, right? It's also about what's going on. And so we saw precipitous fall off in customer satisfaction when following Winter Storm Uri, as did the entire state, all entities. So, we look at stretch and we also look at what's achievable. And so, the answer of when we do it is in our normal annual cycle where we're updating our performance and would be sharing that with the board throughout the year as we're working on it. And then obviously sharing our targets as we're moving into a fiscal year. I hope that's helpful.
Well, it is. There's no need to be defensive about this. But I do want to repeat Trustee Steen's questions that it had been at 79, seemed to be the target, and now the target is 75. And I believe that that had come before the board.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to confirm that was a decision the board made
That's correct.
upon a staff recommendation, but that was a decision we made.
Yes, ma'am. And I did go back in time after our one-on-one conversation and looked at the number of times over the last couple of years that we brought measures to the board in some fashion, either through target setting, through monthly updates, or as we're formulating last year. And it's been, we've brought items either directly tied to or inclusive of these measures 21 times in the last 2 years.
I just wanted to be clear on that, and that's why I had asked for that additional information. These metrics do change, but they come before us, and we might not all agree on those, but I agreed on this one. And, I mean, we can also all read a chart. So it came down to 75, and maybe if we had kept it at 79, this would have been in red instead of green. But, I mean, we can still see the numbers. That are,
Dr. Romero, could we put that up on the screen while you're talking about
oh,
it?
sorry. It was
No, it might be helpful.
36, slide 36. I guess I'm just saying I don't want it to always be this trump card of, oh, you guys are teaching to the test or whatever you call it, that you're lowering these, because we did. We changed these metrics. We changed.
Yeah, Dr. Romero, let me just say this. As long as I'm CEO, these measures have to move with what's happening real time in our industry. And you can't ignore what happened with the pandemic and Winter Storm Uri, because it reset what the customers thought of us in those moments, which we have been trying to dig ourselves out of that hole. And what this slide shows is we're making progress. And there's a recent article talked about the progress that we're making. So are we back to where we were? No. But to say that we got to reset all of our metrics back to pre-pandemic levels is unrealistic of the challenges that we faced since then. And so we will always, as a team, propose metrics we think are stretch, but they have to be achievable. We reset this particular measure to be achievable but difficult to achieve, and that's where we were.
And again, I don't want it to be that you all have to feel defensive. You didn't change those measures. We changed those measures. I agree with everything you said about why we changed those measures, and I want to make it clear to the public that we're not hearing for the first time that you changed the measures and why. We all agreed on this. So I just feel really strongly about that. I appreciate Trustee Steen going through these numbers, and I think it's important to highlight all these things, but I just couldn't disagree more with saying that staff and our leadership is not trying harder. I'm real happy with this report. It shows to me that a lot of things are starting to come together. And I do think it's important to think about things as a package and how they impact each other. For example, the vegetation management, which I'm glad we're highlighting. People don't look at it a lot, but it is really important. And that we had more funds to be able to do that. In my quadrant, that's giving people a lot fewer outages, and it's really important. And to look at those wholesale sales just separately as if this was just a lucky break, maybe it was, but then we used it to invest really strategically, and I think that's important. I think it's important because a message I'm hearing in the community and even in the press in the last few days coming out of that last ERCOT meeting is, oh, San Antonio grew so fast that CPS doesn't have enough energy. And totally not the case. And so I really appreciate what y'all are saying here. And I think that we positioned ourselves to be able to take advantage of those wholesale sales in the ERCOT market, and I really appreciate that. And just the last thing I wanted to say, on the outages, I feel like we're always going to be chasing that number now, and here's where I'm saying it again. I think that number should go up, because I think a report just came out that outages across the country that number is increasing. And it's not because utilities aren't doing enough, it's because storms are getting more frequent and worse. So that's one where I would say, we're barely below our target, but that's something I think every year should probably go up. And maybe we can work with our meteorologist or something on that. But I do appreciate this, and I'm happy with it. And congratulations on it.
Building upon Dr. Romero, I'm just going to make a couple of comments, and then I want to pass the mic back to Mr. Steen. I'm going to echo what Dr. Romero pointed out. There's been a lot of work. It started when Mr. Steen led the organization, to Dr. Mackey and myself. At the end of the day, there's a time for Mr. Steen. Mr. Steen did a lot of great things under his chairmanship. Things then drastically went into another direction. Dr. Mackey did the best that he could, I think, but one of the best things that he did was to have a plan. That Vision 2027 plan has been driving and making things clear. You know what I love the most? You can quantify things, and then there's also the quantified, and then there's the sentiment behind it. And I remember when I was a freshman, lines of people that would sign up for citizens to be heard, angry with us. And this was before COVID, and this was before the pandemic. I'm really big in being out there in the community, and it's because I think that that's the best way to get information. And I don't have people angry at me. There's different opinions and different specific views, but they're happy in the direction that we're moving forward. They're proud of their energy company again. So I want to thank all of you who do that on a daily basis. But for me, what I love the most is how clear things are. You look at the scorecard, you look at the strategic execution tied towards 2027. You look at the enterprise measures, which we've discussed before the board 19 times, as stated. And everything is aligned. Everything is aligned. If you go to slide 6, please. Again, things that our city owner asked of us: customer service, reliability, affordability. There's a result for all those things. The board asked. We want to identify grants. We've done grants. We want to make sure, again, everything from employee retention, everything from, look at the 16 major events, 16, and we still had 94% plant reliability, 16. That's good work. So as far as I'm concerned, we're moving in the right direction, but I do agree with Mr. Steen's statement. It's a one-time lift. Look, I'm a business owner. I always tell my staff, every year we start at 0. Every year we have to improve results. You have to retain the base. You have to grow the base. You have to maintain customer service, because what we did yesterday was yesterday. It's about moving forward. So yes, I'm very mindful that today's results were great, but this is just the beginning of a lot more work that we have to do collectively as an organization to make sure that we keep moving in the right directions, knowing that, again, things are very agile and volatile. So on that note, Mr. Steen?
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. If you could put back up slide 36. And so remember, this is going on a calendar year basis. And Uri occurred early in the year, 3 years ago, in 2021. And you see it dropped even further in 2022. I don't know if we can keep blaming Uri on things. I think more things are going on. People mentioned earlier about people being stressed about paying their bills. That could be going on. But also, Dr. Romero, I don't recall approving this metric, and remind me of when we approved that.
You want to go ahead? Go ahead if you want to answer that.
I'm looking at my notes here, so just give me a moment.
And while you're looking at, do you have the information ready?
Go ahead, please.
While she's referring to her notes, you're right, it wasn't just Uri, but you don't recover from the pandemic and Uri and high interest rates overnight, especially for those who are most vulnerable. I mean, the dissatisfaction was leadership dissatisfaction. It was, everybody was angry at a lot of things. You don't overturn this overnight. And for those who are not in a comfortable position, one setback takes them several years to recover. And it is our responsibility to find ways to, again, address the diverse, end users that we have. Not everyone's going to be satisfied overnight if they're not in the best position to recover faster than others. It wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of also our industry being disrupted.
Okay, I have a few dates.
Before we call the question, she's going to answer the question, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm going to give you all a few dates with the specific items. So on April 3rd of 2023, Dr. John Soltow gave a 2023 end-of-year report, which included measures. On the subsequent meeting, April 24th, 2023, the fiscal year 2024 performance measures, the discussion was held, and again, Dr. John Soltow presented. My first day of employment, June 12th, 2023, we had a fiscal year 2024-2025 strategic outlook, which included the measures. We had a quarterly performance update, and that occurred on June 26th of 2023, that was delivered by Corey Kaczynski and Deanna Hardwick. We had our second quarter performance update for the fiscal year 2024, which we are discussing, and that was on August 28th, 2023, and that conversation was held by Dr. Soltow, Deanna Hardwick, and Corey Kaczynski. And then lastly, a couple of key dates. December 18th, Chad Hoopengarner gave a fiscal year 2024 third quarter performance update, which included these measures. And then most recently, February 5th, 2024, we presented the fiscal year 2025 annual scorecard to the Board of Trustees. Hopefully this is helpful.
Okay, before Mr. Steen, Mayor, okay, Mr. Steen, go ahead.
I agree with Dr. Mackey that we should move on, but I think Dr. Romero said we approved it as if a vote was taken. And I don't think that happens, and it still mystifies me how these targets get set, but I don't think that the board approves them. Maybe you did in a committee, and maybe that's what you're remembering, but I didn't approve these.
Well, we wouldn't have voted in committee. Maybe we just need a review of this at our next meeting.
Yeah, I've already talked about the vote needed because I'm exhausted about.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that, I think, as part of the process today.
Yeah, we're gonna, I do agree that's a valid, something that we need to put to rest, but they have been presented and we've all been here. And by the way, I think there's been 19 no's and abstaining, which meant that have not been in support of whatever's been discussed. So everybody has an opinion, but this information has been presented through committees, has been presented in the public, whether there's been a formal vote or not, it's been presented. So I think that's what I'm hearing for everyone, and just in different versions. And Mayor, did you want to go ahead and say something before we move on?
I mean, I'll just say, you don't need rose-colored glasses to look at these numbers, these metrics, and not interpret them like Eeyore would. I mean, these are really good numbers in terms of where we have been and where we're going. I look at the investments that this company is making, both in terms of capacity and resiliency, the fact that we're following our plan, the fact that we've been able to make some of these strategic capital investments by using our wholesale revenue, which again is added to our ability to move things faster and not impacting our customer because those revenues are coming from outside the service area. And we are doing that in the tail of what we've been through, which is the most challenging environment, I think, that, in modern energy industry has ever been through. So, again, this is a fantastic report. I'm very pleased with it. I don't think we can take the pedal off the metal, so to speak, but let's keep it moving in this direction because it's the right one for the organization, and it certainly puts us on a much better path for the future.
Thank you, Mayor. And then Dr. Romero?
I just wanted to say, I don't think we vote on these. I wanted to say that they're presented to us, and we can make suggestions. And I don't think enough of us said at the time, for example, on this one, that, oh, we don't agree with bringing it from 79 to 75. But this isn't policy that we're voting on. It wouldn't matter. What if they put it down to 10? Our target is 10% approval, and came back to us and said, oh, we met our target. It's our responsibility not to accept that. We as a board would say that's not acceptable, or they could put it at 100% and always fail. And our responsibility would be to say, you set the bar too high, but we're happy with where you are. So, you know, unless it's in our bylaws that that's something specifically we have to vote on, and I really don't think it is, I think bringing it to us as recommendations where we get to weigh in, and then more importantly here, because clearly we're not shy about speaking up and talking about what they did, I think seeing the results are more important.
And the only thing that I would have to add, you can say no all day long, or you can say no, then bring a solution to the table and participate in governance. We have not only do we have a fiduciary responsibility, but we also have a responsibility, as Dr. Romero stated, to participate and to influence through the committees. So if something's presented to you as a trustee and you don't like it, then speak up. And this is where your chairman comes in also to help and advocate that concern that a trustee has. But saying no is not a solution. Participating, keeping, people held accountable, and participating is what governance and democracy is all about. And if we can go ahead and move on to the next item.
There's one other item that I didn't complete. I apologize to send us back. Could you bring up slide 11? This is to close out an item that we committed to our city owner and regulator. As you all may recall, we had an organization, Daymark, that came in and conducted a detailed business review of all aspects of CPS Energy. This was requested in the rate case prior to the one that just was approved at the end of last year. There were 92 recommendations that were provided both by Daymark and Gallup, and we're pleased to report out that we have fully evaluated and incorporated these 92 items. 57 are tied with our current fiscal year plan, and then we've got another 35 that we've incorporated into our processes and our business plans for the fiscal year 2025 period.
Rudy?
Yeah, so this will be the last update on this item. We have completed all of the action items associated with the operational efficiency review. That was no small feat, on the heels of all the recommendations made from the Committee for Emergency Preparedness, post-Winter Storm Uri. So, there have been hundreds, literally, of action items we've had to take to incorporate all of that feedback into our processes, which we have now done.
Again, there was a difference of opinion of who committed to that, but at the end of the day, the organization followed through, and Dr. Romero and I were part of that through the committee. And again, thank you very much. There was a lot of good items that were incorporated into our plan. And again, there's a lot of alignment. This stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. This has been a 3-year process. Every chairman has, not every, some chairman, we've all have been promoting and moving in that direction based on this feedback, and that's where the plan came out of. And we took all feedback, and so congratulations for meeting 57, or 92, and meeting 57 of those, so thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes this presentation.
Okay, the next item is 10, Affordability Discount Program Update. I'm sorry, 9, Financial Plan. Here I am. 2025 Financial Plan, item number 9. Lori, please begin your presentation.
All right, so today's presentation here is my annual presentation of our financing strategy and supporting transactions. This financing plan is in direct support of our previously approved budget and in support of our future forecasts that we reviewed as part of our approved rate request. And ultimately, it is in support of Vision 2027 and the generation plan. So as we do annually, we'll request the board's approval at the end of this presentation. And then subsequent to a successful vote, we'll then head to City Council for approval there as well later in the year. So as noted on this slide, a reminder, the reason I am here today is per our governance, one of the several components of our business requires board and council approval is the issuance of debt and the supporting facilities. Okay, as in years past, there are several transactions that make up the totality of our annual financing plan. And in years past, like we've done, we will ask for authority to execute these over the next 12 months. And in conjunction with our financial advisors and our bond counsel, the ultimate final determination of the timing of these, if we execute them, will be a function of operational needs and a function of market conditions. So I'll use this slide as a summary slide to speak to, and we'll just kind of go down the list here. Items 1 through 4 are likely most familiar to the Board of Trustees. Item 1 is simply taking our short-term capacity, such as our commercial paper, and converting it to fixed long-term debt. We do this almost every year as part of that program. Item number 2, it's a small refunding, but it will still yield approximately $3 to $5 million in lifetime savings for our customers on this tranche. And item 3 on the list there, depending on market conditions, will either be a refunding or a remarketing. That ultimately, though, will have the effect of securing a fixed rate that will be lower than the existing rate that is in our plan. So this will be a net positive. And then lastly, in that first section, item number 4, it's similar to a transaction that we had done last year, whereby we will go out to existing bondholders and offer them a conversion from taxable to tax-exempt debt. Based on our current estimates, we think the savings could be anywhere from $1 to $3 million over those tranches that we're able to convert. So that'll be positive. In all cases, with these top 4, the identified savings that we're putting on the slide here is going to be incremental to our forecast, meaning that the savings that we are able to achieve will improve our overall financial forecast that we have shown by whatever final amount is achieved. So ultimately, this is opportunity to do business as usual and have savings for our customers. And then moving on to the second half of that page, 5 through 8 on this list, they are common financial instruments. They're just less frequently used by us at CPS Energy. So item number 5 there, called new money, it's really an opportunity to take advantage of the spread between long-term and short-term borrowing rates. Should the market conditions persist as they are, we would execute this strategy to fund part of our capital plan. The net result is to take advantage of an opportunity to reduce our debt service costs relative to our plan, which is consistent with a lot of these opportunities here. Item number 6 here, the refunding of our BABs. This is in part a risk reduction strategy. Should the market conditions allow it, we may take the opportunity to convert our Build America bonds and convert them. They're currently taxable to tax exempt, so that we no longer have the exposure to the potential sequestration by the federal government that may impact the otherwise beneficial federal subsidy that we receive from them. Item 7, this is also in the space of a risk reduction strategy. In order to mitigate the risk of having fewer banks to support our financing needs due to Senate Bill 13 and 19 exclusions, this additional tool may provide us with other institutions as options. We would solicit for this product, but we wouldn't expect to actually draw on this, but it would serve as added protection to our program if, in fact, we find a provider. And the last one on this list, number 8, a replacement of paying agents. This is simply an opportunity to seek out cost savings by allowing us to do an RFP process for our paying agent. We believe there may be an opportunity to improve upon our current costs and perhaps improve upon the service we're receiving. Again, in any case, any savings that we're able to achieve is beneficial to our customers and to our forecast. So I know there's a lot on this page. There's more additional detail in the appendix, but all in all, this is a plan I think that's in alignment of supporting, as I mentioned at the beginning, our currently approved budget the forecast that we had spoken about during our rate request and support of a Vision 2027, and I think has some really good opportunities for our customers.
And it, open it to questions. Again, there's a glossary. Everything's laid out, B7, everything is explained. So in case you want to refer to numbers, I think, again, it's important to not just vote to vote, but understand what we're going to vote on. It's a lot of moving parts, but thank you, Corey, for being so eloquent about it and very factual about it. So the floor is open.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2025 financial planning consisting of standard transaction and new opportunities.
Second.
Open for discussion.
You want me to go first or let somebody else?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to start by thanking our very capable CFO, Corey Kaczynski, for this presentation today and also for his willingness to confer with me, and I assume the other trustees, about this matter in advance of today's meeting. I'll begin by focusing on the total debt CPS Energy is carrying right now. And I want to say it's roughly $6.5 billion. Is that correct?
It's a little closer to 6.9 at this point.
To 6.9? And let me use a couple of examples to bring home to our listeners just how much a billion is. So at 1 number per second, with no breaks at all for any reason, it'd take around 11 and a half days to count from 1 to a million if you're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4. So how long do you think it would take to count from 1 to a billion? And I'll pause and let you get a number in your mind. Well, forget about number of days because it's easier to express in years. It would take 32 years. Another way to think about it is imagine someone handed you $1 million and told you to spend $1,000 every day and come back when you ran out of money. So if someone gave you $1 million, you'd return with no money left in 3 years. Now, if someone handed you $1 billion and you spent $1,000 each day, incredibly, you'd be spending for about 2,740 years before you went broke. So I return to that number our CFO just confirmed. $6.9 billion is the amount of debt CPS Energy carries on its balance sheet. In the performance recap just presented under the previous agenda item, you indicated that for fiscal year 2024, our fiscal year, again, that ended on January 31, 2024, CPS Energy's debt service was $468.7 million. That is CPS Energy's fiscal year 2024 annual payment to financial institutions and bondholders for principal and interest is approaching $500 million. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Assuming this
Part of the plan and anticipated, mind you.
All right. Assuming this financing plan will be approved by this board today, what are you planning for CPS Energy's debt capitalization ratio to be for fiscal year 2025?
I believe we set a 62.5% approximate target.
62.5.
And we have, by the end of the decade, getting to approximately 65, and I'm going off the top of my head here. But again, these are all consistent with the conversation we had during the last rate request and the budgeted, the approval of our budget. So no new information.
Well, Mr. Steen is passing this out. You sure, Mayor?
Yeah.
Mr. Steen, are you okay if the mayor asks questions?
It won't take me very much.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Steen.
I'm going to pass around handouts to the trustees. I'd like for Corey to get one if he could. And in response to a request made at a special meeting of this board last fall, on November 16th, 2023, you emailed all trustees a 5-year forecast of metrics charts. Did she just give you that? Did she just?
Yeah, I got it, sir.
In one chart, you showed a projection of the debt capitalization ratio starting at 60.92 for fiscal year 2024 and climbing steadily to 67.8% by fiscal year 2029. So while it's been over my objections, CPS Energy is still planning to have a debt capitalization ratio of 67.8% by 2029 even with every 2-year rate increases, specifically 4.25% in fiscal year 2025, 5.5% in fiscal year 2027, and another 5.5% in fiscal year 2029. Is that correct, Mr. Kaczynski?
Yeah, so I was double checking my rate case numbers. So these are exactly the numbers we talked about publicly and are consistent with the plan that we discussed.
All right, so let me repeat for emphasis, as we sit here today, our debt capitalization ratio, a leverage metric where lower is better, continues to exceed the 60% threshold set by our 3 credit rating agencies, and disturbingly is projected to increase to 67.8% in fiscal year 2029, notwithstanding planned every 2-year rate hikes baked in. And Mr. Kaczynski, I appreciate your well-thought-out financing plan for fiscal year 2025, and it includes standard refunding or remarketing efforts that will result in substantial savings and/or risk mitigation for CPS Energy. Further, seeking competitive pricing from our paying agents should help reduce costs, which of course is desirable. The problem for me is that you've wrapped all of this into one package on which we're being asked to vote yes or no. So while I approve of a number of actions you're proposing, I cannot support a comprehensive plan that's purposely taking CPS Energy down the road, down the path to be over-leveraged. And for those listening today, let me explain that a company is said to be over-leveraged when it has too much debt, impeding its ability to make principal and interest payments and to cover its operating and other expenses. The concern with over-leveraging is that it can lead to a downward financial spiral, resulting in the need to borrow more and more. What's remarkable is that companies that get over-leveraged often just slide into it, but in this instance, as evidenced by the 5-year metric projections I provided to this board today, CPS Energy is actively planning to take the company in that direction. In sum, what's being proposed overall is not financially prudent, and I'm opposed to it. And just in closing, Ms. Ramirez, I'd appreciate it if in the minutes for today's meeting, you'd reflect the reasons for my negative vote. And thank you, Madam Chair, and that's all I have on this topic at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Any further discussion, Mayor?
Well, I'd like to hear a little bit more, because that is a quite inflammatory thing to say, that a company is about to be over-leveraged. I would like to hear from somebody who actually has financial experience with this company.
Mayor, I'm careful with my words, and I'm talking about on a path to being over-leveraged.
Okay, well, I'd like to get a response from one of the folks either in the department or who is being paid to provide financial advice to this organization respond to that.
So I'll do 2 things, Mayor. I'll say a few comments, and then I'll ask our financial advisors to step up to the mic. We have addressed and characterized that commentary for about 1 year or 2 years at this point. I would argue that we are doing this in support of the plan, and we are not over-leveraging our organization in a way that is improper for what needs to be done. We showed extensive illustration that went back to 1970 and the different investment cycles that we've done over time and demonstrated the appropriateness of this plan. And I would just resist the characterization of it being somehow not transparent and or somehow a slide into something that we're unexpected to do. So with that, I would ask our financial advisors who have been with us along the way to come up and share a few words.
Yeah, and while Eric and Don are coming up, let me just say a couple things. Doing nothing is not an option, and I've said that from the day I've taken this responsibility over. Doing nothing is not an option. We've got to invest in our system, and there's only 2 places you go to do that: our customers or the markets, the debt markets. So if we're going to keep our rates affordable, which we've all agreed is an expectation of our community, we've got to utilize all the tools at our disposal. So it's going to take both. It's going to take consideration from our community to make the right, while we're making the right investments, and we're going to have to be smart about our use of our debt capacity.
And let me just say one thing before we hand it off to advisors. So if I take your point, Trustee Steen, as sort of a warning shot. And so if it's not meant to be inflammatory, it's certainly meant to create a reaction. And so I will say that if that's the intent, then you need to provide an alternative to what we're doing. And if there's not one, I'd like to hear from staff, what is the alternative if this is not the prudent way to invest in the company? So,
Sure. Happy to respond to that. Eric Brown here, Managing Director with PFM Financial Advisors. We're co-financial advisors to CPS Energy, along with Don Gonzalez here at Estrada Hinojosa. We have worked extensively with CPS Energy staff to review and help develop the plans that you've seen in front of you. There is a push and a pull as has been communicated, as has been reflected in the enterprise metrics and the new financial metrics that you've seen between the different elements of a plan of finance. So certainly leverage is one of the elements that's important. That's been reflected in terms of debt to capitalization. There are other elements such as days cash on hand, such as coverage, that are also important. And then, of course, affordability is something that folks is ever present and is an important element in determining a company's creditworthiness and the viability of their financial plan. So it's really the totality of all of those items together. Reducing leverage has impacts on those other metrics that are direct in nature. And so to the extent that leverage is reduced by pushing more of the capital budget to funded from operating cash, that has a direct impact, for example, on the liquidity. It has an impact on days cash on hand, and it has an impact on coverage, and it has an impact on affordability. So I think it's important to look at all those things in totality. Looking at the financial plans that CPS Energy certainly has put forward here, it is certainly a financial plan we're comfortable keep CPS Energy in the current rating category or on a path to have metrics that would suggest the current rating category, certainly recognizing that there are factors outside of the finances themselves that do have an impact on the credit rating. So I think in totality, we're certainly comfortable that there's not a significant over-leveraging that's happening here that's going to result in the inability to operate the system.
can I ask a quick question? You mentioned items outside of the metrics that could have pressure, negative pressure. One of those I understand to be one of the most important being underinvestment in the infrastructure.
That's absolutely correct. So certainly investment in infrastructure is very important in order to maintain the system and the assets that are within the system. There are others, such as, for example, participation in the ERCOT market generally, which I think folks are aware has raised and moved the goalposts for where the financial metrics need to be at a certain rating category. So there are other elements that are important to that. The financial metrics are just one piece of the puzzle.
I wanted to add a little bit of color to the second question that you asked relative to alternatives. And Rudy's exactly right. We've gone through a collaborative process with our community, with the board, to establish long-range plans. The big things that we've got to do in the funding that is being asked for here in the financing plan speaks to really a couple of large categories. You saw we set a new system peak of 5,700 megawatts, right? We're going to be retiring over the next decade almost 2,000 megawatts of conventional capacity. So we're creating a gap for capacity. Our system is growing at 150 megawatts a year. So in addition to that, we're growing. So investment in replacement of those assets is going to be a key component. Our transmission system is expanding. ERCOT has approved projects to help import because transmission imports to San Antonio because of our growth and where resources are. And you've heard, about a significant project that is underway relative to replacing our ERP system, which is over 2 decades old. And there are direct ties to our ability to implement new programs for our customers, such as rate and pricing structures, but also there's just inherent risk with having a legacy system. So to the point of, are there alternatives? These things are going to cost money, and we're positioning our plans for the stability of this community and keeping up with growth for the long term. So hopefully that's helpful.
That's helpful. Is there anything else? Because I do want to say one other thing. Don, go ahead.
I think if you could go to slide 4, I think it's important to point out that the only items here that we're looking at that's before the board for consideration that's really going to be additional debt is going to be item 5. Item 7 is for a potential extendable commercial paper program. And right now, that's a little bit more of a safety valve, so there may not be drawn upon, but it's going to provide what I would consider liquidity support in the eventual need of something extraordinary, just because of the changes that we've seen from the legislature that they've been handing down. That's been impacting the number of firms and types of firms that can provide services to municipal entities. So it's really item 5 is about the only item that's really going to be adding additional leverage. Not to say that any of the others won't, but they won't nearly to the extent that item 5 would, because they're primarily refundings or remarketings of debt that's already outstanding. So it's already been factored into that debt to capitalization ratio. So the $310 million out of, I think what we're looking at here is something, north of $2 billion is, a small amount of additional debt that we're looking at. The second point that I would make is we find ourselves in I would say normally it's a unique environment where we have an inverted yield curve. We're actually at about 628 days, at least that was the number I heard this morning, of an inverted yield curve. We rarely see our interest rate environment in the United States inverted for that long. Some of this debt that we're looking to refinance is on the short end of the yield curve, where interest rates are actually higher than where they are in the midterm. So years 1 through 5 are actually higher interest rates than what we see right now in years 6 through about 11 or 12. So if we're going to be taking this debt and pushing it out a little bit further and trying to do some refunding for savings, we're actually going to be moving debt from higher interest rates to a lower interest rate environment. The challenge that we have with debt to capitalization ratio is that it's one that continues to roll, if you will. And what I mean by that is it's not something that you can fix in a year. It's probably going to take about 5 to 7 years to really see very much change. And to your point, Mayor, that you were making about making improvements to infrastructure, if you weren't going to be spending as much on improving all the software and all the things that need to be addressed on a large scale that has gone several years without being addressed, those are things that you need to do. We've seen entities actually get downgraded because from the rating agencies for a lack of responsiveness to addressing infrastructure needs. So the rating agencies do expect that the leverage ratio is going to go up during times where you're addressing those needs. The key is going to be, are they strategically invested, and are they going to be placed where there's the greatest need and have the greatest impact to the entity? And I think that's what we're doing here.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that analysis. And I'll just say, even beyond, we're not playing to the metrics here. I mean, that's important. We're also working for our customers, and beyond the ratings that would suffer from lack of investment in the infrastructure, so will those customer satisfaction numbers. And so will the ability for this company to keep the lights on. So if those things are valuable to us, we're going to have to make investments. What I will look for is the balance. On that, we didn't look at the appendix on the previous item, but San Antonio CPS Energy continues to be the most affordable, least expensive of the major cities in terms of electric bills for our customers. At the same time, we are making these investments, making up for lost ground that we had during Winter Storm Uri and all these other issues with the winter events knocking trees down that knocked out power. So, I mean, if you are going to make statements about we're not doing it the right way or we're doing it irresponsibly, we need to have alternatives. Because you can't bat down one metric and not look at the impact on another. Because if you're suggesting that we should be less leveraged, tell me then you don't want to make the investments we're making in, or tell me that you don't want to be as affordable as we are. We've got to create a balance here. Thank you.
Mayor, if I can just respond briefly. I have talked about things, and you'll say, well, that's in the past, but we agreed to extend a STEP program at a cost of $85 million a year.
And we can have that step debate. I'm happy to have it. Why
For
that
5
fits
years.
into the balance.
What you're saying, I think we have to get the software straightened out, but we didn't have to do STEP. That's an example.
We didn't have to. We chose to, and I think we chose to do it for really good reasons.
And I've talked a lot about cost savings, and I don't see that in this company right now, the emphasis on cost savings.
We're saving on our CEO. He makes a lot less than our previous CEO. So that's a significant, that is a valid point. I mean, we talk about cost savings. We now have a CEO who's giving us the best results, making less, a lot less. That is savings with these results. So again, we're going to move on. Everybody has had an opportunity to speak, and we need a vote.
I'll move to approve.
We need to do roll call.
We have a motion by Trustee Dr. Mackey and a second by Romero. May I poll the trustees?
Yes.
Trustee Dr. Mackey? Yes. Trustee Steen?
No.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item number 10. Go ahead, sir.
Well, while Elena gets ready for her presentation, this is a topic that has come up across the community and certainly, was a topic of conversation at City Council during the rate conversations. This board has asked, what else could we do to try to, to continue making the progress we've been making on getting customers back on track. This is an item that would help with that regard by expanding the affordability discount program for the next 2 years. We can get more customers who fall in the categories of being behind and needing the assistance with their bill. We set aside customer program dollars last year as part of the wholesale revenue increase that we saw. So this item is budgeted and would add no added burden to our ratepayers. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lena.
I'm sorry, repeat that last part that you said.
So we had,
no added what?
with the $200 million of wholesale revenues that we made last year, we had, when we were communicating as to how we would spend those dollars, one of the things that we set some dollars aside was for additional REAP dollars. Right now, we've got more money in REAP than we've ever had before, close to $14 million. So our proposal is, instead of putting money in REAP where we have plenty of resources, we could expand the ADP program and make progress with customers who are behind on their bills. So that's where I'm coming from.
Good afternoon. So for this item, we just have 2 slides. I'm going to give an update on our affordability discount program, and then we're going to request consideration of an approval to update our qualifications for the program. So the item before you today is essentially a request to move from a 125% level of the federal poverty line to 150. As a reminder, today, eligible low-income customers whose total household income is at or below 125% of that federal poverty level and have one of the eligibility requirements listed on the slide, which are an age item, a disability, use of life-sustaining medical equipment, or preschool-age children or children under 18. And another category is a household that has a demonstrated energy burden of more than 10%, which is defined as their annual energy expenses And if that is in excess of of more than 10% of their annual household income, that is also a qualifier. So the item that we're requesting today is an expansion of the enrollment in ADP to 150% of the federal poverty level for a period of 2 years, and that we can submit this item to the City of San Antonio City Council for approval. So I will pause there and take questions relative to this change.
Before we speak as a board, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the affordability discount program. Yeah? No, you go ahead. Just second, if so or not.
Second.
Open for discussion, and we're going to start with Dr. Romero, and then after Dr. Romero, Mr. Steen.
Thank you. Can you just clarify also what Rudy just said? Is the increase to the 150% also covered in the current budget?
Yes, ma'am. And just to be clear, ADP isn't technically a budgeted item. It's a reduction in revenue. And so we have, through our planning efforts, assumed that we can absorb this change for the next 2 years. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I just wanted to thank you because when I was reading this and I thought, this seems kind of confusing because somebody would need to know what is the federal poverty level and then figure out what's 150% of that. And so I just went to the homepage today and it's right there.
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate that it says for how many members in your household, this is exactly the number you need to be looking at to be eligible for this. So I appreciate that it's right there. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And just to clarify, Dr. Romero says that it's publicly available, the eligibility requirement on the website.
Yes, ma'am. The landing page.
So please put up slide 3. And I'll direct my comments to Ms. Ball and possibly our general counsel. So that those listening can get some context, how long has CPS Energy had in place an affordability discount program, or ADP?
I'm going to need to phone a friend because I don't know the answer to that question.
Right. And by the way, Ms. Ball, can I tell you something? You do a great job on everything, and I know that you're sort of substituting today because is it Ms. Hardwick that would?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you know the answer to that?
Since 2012.
Since 2012. And would it be accurate to describe the program as one whereby certain CPS Energy customers' bills are partially paid by other CPS Energy customers? And this might be of interest to you, Dr. Romero.
So it is a revenue reduction overall to the utilities revenue requirements. And those customers do get a reduction in their bill that qualify for the affordability discount program. And that's equal to about $220 on an annual basis.
But residential electric and gas customers pay to fund this program.
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, it's about 84 cents that other folks in the residential class are paying for this program.
But I don't think, Dr. Romero, you were clear on that it's actually paid for by other customers, by you and I.
So I'll clarify, right? So as we talked about with the rate case, when we originally had it at 125%, we noted that we would increase the number of folks on it. That is traditionally paid by other customers. What Rudy alluded to at the very beginning was, during that discussion, we had put $10 million of our additional wholesale revenue that we anticipated months ago we would all put into REAP. However, as Rudy alluded to, REAP is pretty well funded, and so we think that we can take a portion of that over the next 2 years in an atypical way, but to still fund this program for the next 2 years, and that's where those dollars are coming from, which we think is the right decision to do.
And to be clear, not adding any else to pay for anything.
Right, so this.
Let's be clear, so we're not having anybody else on top of the 84, more people who pay 84 cents to pay for this.
Yeah, so those other customers are not getting anything else impacted.
Mr. Steen, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But the last time this was presented to us, it was presented as a program where all customers pay for this through an increase to their bill. It
is up to 125%.
Yes.
The delta between 125 and 150 is the incremental that I'm trying to allude to. And to the chair's point, no other customer is going to have to compensate for that delta over the next 2 years because we're going to use some of those additional wholesale revenues to compensate.
All right, that wasn't in any of the materials.
But I believe we asked to everybody get phone calls to clarify this point.
So now I recall that at our November 8th, 2023 board meeting, Deanna Hardwick, and you're our chief strategy officer, and she's our chief customer strategy officer, proposed expanding the number of eligible ADP customers by including those with a severe energy burden. And I see it's listed on slide 3 as the last eligibility requirement, the 5th bullet point. It says right there, have a demonstrated energy burden of more than 10%, defined as an annual energy expense of more than 10% of annual household income. This severe energy burden expansion of the Affordability Discount Program was adopted by this board on December 4th, 2023, and it was contained in the same resolution whereby the 4.25% base rate increase was approved. And does that all sound correct to you, Ms. Ball?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at the same time, at the same November 8th meeting, Ms. Hardwick told us that at that time there were 65,000 customers eligible to enroll in the Affordability Discount Program, and that she estimated that 15,000 more would be eligible if the severe energy burden provision was adopted. So if what Ms. Hardwick told us was accurate, and that once the severe energy burden provision was implemented, there were 80,000 eligible customers, and I think this answers something that Dr. Romero was asking about earlier, then how many new customers will be eligible should your 150% federal poverty level expansion be adopted? In other words,
yes, sir.
How many total eligible customers will there be?
Yes, sir. Let me give you two numbers. One is as of January 31st, 2024, we had 65,464 customers enrolled. That's grown as we've extended outreach to 68,261 as of 2/29/24. From an eligibility perspective, as of February 29th, 2024, we have in total 139,869 customers who would qualify under this program as it's currently architected. As you all are aware, and you highlighted the 80,000, that is our estimate based on where we think we're going to be able to grow under the current program, but we have more people that would be eligible. For the proposed program, as of February 29th, 2024, we believe we would have an approximate additional 58,337 customers that could be eligible under the expanded up to 150% of the federal poverty limit adjustment, which would bring the total eligibility under the program to 198,206 customers. Does that make sense?
That was a lot of numbers, but what you're saying is that with the severe energy burden provision, we got to 80,000 eligible customers. And if this passes today, which is the 150% federal poverty level expansion, that would take that 80,000 eligible customers number to 198,000?
We believe the uptake rate is not 100%, right? Just because someone's eligible does not mean that they apply for it.
No, I can ask about actually enrolled, but
Correct.
But that's how many would be eligible?
Yes, sir.
200,000?
Correct.
Of a customer base of how many?
Gas, we're 930,000 accounts right now, and electric, about 330, subject to check, please, because I'm working off of my ever-fading memory.
Yeah, the other 1.3 plus million customers total.
And so basically, it's a reflection.
Right, but there's an overlap there, right?
I mean, but then at the end of the day, it's a very sad telling story that that's how many people live in poverty.
That are in need.
That are in need. So at the end of the day, I mean, that's just a reflection of the situation of City of San Antonio. So every time we talk about, well, why do we have so many people that are in debt, or why isn't that number going down? Well, look at the numbers. Look at how many people would be eligible for this. At the end of the day, we're here again offering a solution. Mr. Steen, I'm going to go ahead and let you finish your comment because I have Dr. Romero and then I have the mayor.
It shouldn't take long. Those were a lot of numbers, and I appreciate it. But how many today are enrolled in the Affordability Discount Program?
Okay. As I mentioned, as of February 29th, 2024, we had 68,261 customers enrolled in the current ADP program.
All right. And in the past, that we would make, you know, for example, when we did this for the severe energy burden, we lost revenue from extending affordability discounts to eligible customers, but we made up for it by charging a little bit more to our other electric and gas customers.
That's not a correct statement.
I'm saying, but this time, you're using other funds to do this.
That's correct.
We're using revenue to use this and not add burden.
Off-system sales that have not come from our customers.
All right. Then on an annual basis, what's the total amount of dollars we're dealing with here?
Yeah.
Once the additional customers qualifying because of the federal poverty level expansion are added, how much money might our total residential base be asked? Well, I'm saying, what's the ballpark figure?
Can I answer it based on, I think what you're trying to ask, which is how much?
That's going to be my next question. What is the,
How much
where's
I think
going
you're,
with this?
I think you're asking, how much do we estimate the cost of this to be?
Yes.
During fiscal year 2020, this coming fiscal year? So through fiscal year 2024, ADP was funded at 16.1 million, which gives that is based on an 80,000 person enrollment, customer enrollment number. So 16.1 million, assuming that we get to 80,000 enrolled in the program.
That's not, I'm sorry, Elena, that's not the question Trustee Steen's asking. You're asking incrementally how much we expect this to cost. Is that right?
Yes.
About $2 million a year.
All right. And then I'm almost through. What's behind the decision made to limit this 150% federal poverty level expansion of the ADP to 2 years?
Because
we may
beyond the
not
2
have
years, we would have to roll it into rates. So we can't commit to this, you know, beyond that 2-year period. We would expect this to be a topic of conversation the next time we come in for rate adjustment.
And I think you're answering my other question,
Well,
which
Mr.
is
Steen,
why
the only reason why we want to make sure is that we can't guarantee, but the intent is there, and we have to be mindful. Again, this could be a one-time thing, like I said, one-time lift, but again, it all boils down to performance.
And then why wasn't the severe energy burden expansion we adopted last December 4th limited to 2 years?
Because that was included as part of the rate. So once you put in a rate, you know, unless you're going to change it, you know, we could have increased it then or we could have decreased it then, but we went with what we normally do is, you know, we say, okay, we think we can fund this much additional expansion as part of the existing program, and we did that. We kind of, every time we go in for rate increase, we adjust the ADP based on what we think we can afford to put into the program. We did that again. We expanded it based on the 125 and have asked to bring to our board for consideration, you know, funding a 2-year period at 150 to help more customers that need the help.
All right, and I'm right here at the end. And let me just ask you, Ms. Ball, is this simply a strategy to address our severe past due accounts problem? And whereby as of January 31, 2024, the latest data available, 196,000 of our customers are in arrears in the amount of 163 million. So that's my question. Is this a strategy?
It certainly is going to help those that have the most, that are the most vulnerable, of which some are likely struggling to pay their bills. But I will say that we also see this as a parallel. There's a LIHEAP program. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that, but it's the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. And Texas actually set that income qualification for that program at 150% more than 10 years ago. So we also believe that this is consistent with the LIHEAP program. But certainly where we can provide assistance to help folks stay on top of their bills, it certainly is a strategy to help with the past due balances.
And if I can just add, I participated through many community inputs as well as when we went before City Council when we were presenting our rate case. This was also echoed by many residents in the San Antonio who are very familiar with that program as well. Did you just state if you could repeat the program again?
Yes, ma'am. It is called LIHEAP. It's the Low Income Energy Assistance
There
Program.
was a good amount of advocacy groups and residents asking for that consideration who were in support of the rate case, but asked if there were potential ways to look at that program. And so it's not just a strategy, it was also a cry from different organizations, as well as it was mentioned by several council members to look into.
Yeah,
'Cause
I think
we
so.
gotta
So
keep going.
I don't think it was mentioned, but now you're telling us that what we're doing today and what was done on December 4th were both strategies on this past due accounts issue.
Certainly helps, but that's not the driver. No.
I think I just stated it's different
helps.
drivers, Mr. Steen. I think the beauty, again, of the opportunities that are presented before us is to be agile in nature. When there's an opportunity to leverage it and to not be on the backs of ratepayers, then we jump on it. I don't think it's intended to be not transparent or malicious or to move the goalposts. I think this is just an opportunity that why not leverage it? Why not leverage it when we can, and when we can't, we figure it out. But I don't think there's any ill intent by anyone. This is a good thing that we can take extra revenue and do something good and not put it on the backs of other ratepayers. When we can do that, wonderful. When we can't, we'll find other ways to save. On that note, we're going to go ahead and move on if there's no further discussion.
No, Ms.
wait,
Gonzalez,
there's
I just wanted to thank Ms. Ball.
Yes, sir.
And I'm constantly surprised all the different hats you wear and all the different information that you carry with you. But anyway, we appreciate it. I know you're sort of subbing today on a number of things.
Okay, so we're gonna, before, we have one more question from Dr. Romero, and then we're gonna go ahead and vote. We do have we have a lot of agenda items that we still need to discuss, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
And I did want to say that when we went to council, several council members asked if we could get this to 150% as well. If somebody is on ADP and then they get into a delinquency and they come back and talk to you, maybe they're 3 months delinquent or something, and they come back with a payment plan, there's not a punishment then to say you're kicked off ADP?
No,
I
ma'am,
wanna clarify.
there's not.
Okay. And if you are using the energy burden as your requirement, your qualification, do we require a home energy audit with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I quite honestly don't know the answer to that. Again, I'm going to phone a friend in the audience.
Hey, Jesse, can you, or KJ, can one of y'all come up?
Jesse Hernandez from our customer team is here.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. So, Trustee Romero, I know you mentioned that a couple of times. So that's something that we're going to be building into our programs to be able to do that as part of our process as we're building our bundled support that I'm sure you're aware of. We are going to be doing that as part of that to ensure that our customers that go through, whether it's ADP or the support from our customer response unit or our Casa Verde program as well, that we evaluate those customers and we provide those options for them.
Okay, yeah, because especially for the energy burden, I mean, it'd be better if we could just reduce the energy burden instead of taking money off the bill. That way people are just using less to start with, so that's.
Absolutely.
But what?
That step. But that's
Right, but I'm saying if you require the audit, and yeah, it would come in through step,
So,
exactly, yeah.
Dr., I'll just add, from a data standpoint, we've spent the last 2 years identifying where those high energy burden customers are. Now we're starting to knock on doors and do all the bundled care work that we do in the community every day, where we can, parlay the STEP program on top of getting them to sign the forms, which are typically the hardest part of the process, is getting them to fill out the paperwork necessary. So yes, we're well on the way to overlaying those two programs.
Is that it? Lively conversation, good feedback. And then Elena, I know that, Mr. Steen has complimented you for all the different hats you wear and how well you present. But I personally want to thank you. We worked a lot while you were addressing a family concern. And again, just thank you, because we've been talking over several things and you took time out of your personal time again to speak with us and clarify things. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For a vote?
Yes, I have a motion by Trustee Dr. Mackey and a second by Vice Chair Romero. Trustee Dr. Mackey? Yes. Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor? Yes. Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so number 11, CEO recognition.
All right, now I'll go ahead and invite our employees who could join us to come on in. So today I want to recognize our fourth quarter Core Value Award honorees, and just state first and foremost, the work we do in here is not about me or even my leadership team. It's about the 3,500 employees who bring it with them every day and do things the right way. These are honorees that whose peers have nominated them. I want to emphasize the importance of our core values. They serve as guiding principles that shape our culture, drive our decision-making, and enable us to deliver exceptional service to our community. Our core values define who we are as an organization, and they are at the heart of everything that we do. We created this recognition program to highlight individuals and groups whose actions are outstanding examples of our core values in action and in alignment with our Vision 2027 strategy. We want to celebrate their accomplishments and share these stories with our organization and with you. The individuals we are honoring today consistently model our core values, earning the trust and respect of their colleagues, which is why their peers and colleagues nominated them. They consistently go above and beyond expectations, delivering outstanding results. You know, these core values are the how of what we do. It's integrity, it's doing things with integrity, exhibiting one team mentality, you know, executing with excellence, being transparent with our community about the things that we do, watching after our safety and well-being, and being accountable for their actions in all things. Those are the core values that we have set for CPS Energy, and I want to thank the folks behind us and others who couldn't be with us today for being recognized. Congratulations once again. We celebrated in the cafeteria with some breakfast tacos and some coffee, but I wanted to allow the trustees the chance to see the employees that are doing it right every day. So thank you all and congratulations.
Any comments or words by anybody? I think we ought to take a picture first. I'm sorry. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you, Rudy, for that CEO recognition. Item number 12, which is review of action items. Ms. Ramirez?
Yes, a quick review of the previously opened action items. We have a request from Trustee Steen regarding the review of risk mitigations that will be in the April meeting. So that remains open. We have a request to send materials to all trustees regarding agenda item 10 from the February 5th board meetings. I needed the approved minutes from today to send that board communication out, so I will send that out today and the matter will close today. I have closed the open action item that included approval of prior minutes today. And I have one action item from today from Trustee Steen regarding agenda item 9 to please include the reasons for voting no in the minutes, and that will be included in this meeting's minutes that I expect to be approved in the April meeting, and that is it for open action items.
I'm sorry, thank you very much. If you can go ahead and convene us to executive session.
At this time, this board is going to recess into executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including attorney-client privilege, consultation concerning attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, personnel matters under Section 551.074, and to deliberate, vote, or take final action on competitive matters under Section 551.086. At the conclusion of executive session, the board will reconvene in open session and continue the meeting. It's 3:37 as we go into executive session.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez, if you could please bring us back from executive session.
Yes, ma'am. It is 4:25 PM and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We do have a quorum and only the mayor is not present. There was no vote taken that were not part of the posted agenda. So we did have, for clarity, there was a competitive matter that was posted on the agenda as a voting item in executive session.
Okay, did everybody understand and agrees as trustees? Okay. All righty then can I have a motion to adjourn? Second by Dr. Romero. Meeting is adjourned at 4:26, and then a little break, and then we'll start the other meeting. Okay, we're excited to start. Again, good evening. Thank you for those of you who are here, both citizens as well as staff from CPS. If we can officially start the March 25th, 2024 public input session. If we can officially call the meeting to order, and it is 5:30. Shannon, Ms. Ramirez, excuse me, there is obviously no quorum, so can you please confirm that there is no quorum?
There is no quorum, none is required. We can proceed.
Okay, great. So we can start with item number 2. Mr. Tony Ramirez, if you could please go over the safety message, please.
Evacuation procedures. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If that door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the event and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez, for that safety message. Before we jump to public comments, I just wanted, again, just a quick chairman's talking point. Again, just want to reiterate that this is our first evening public input session that's taking place today at 5:30. I want to remind, again, individuals who are interested, I, again, highly encourage, we're going to have 2 more evening sessions this year. And again, we're always encouraging our community to, again, participate and provide us feedback. That feedback could be through multiple channels, whether it's social media, at our customer events, town hall meetings, through your council representative or your mayor. Again, your input is valuable to us. And again, on that note, if we can go ahead and now move to item number 3, which is public comment.
The public input session provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any CPS Energy matters. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak, and they may only address the board on CPS Energy-related business. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the item they're going to speak about. For this meeting, we have 2 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Alan Montemayor.
Good afternoon. My name is Henrietta LaGrange, member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang, LULAC, and Growing Up Brown. I'm going to take this opportunity because we don't have the afternoon public input. And the main reason that I'm here is to thank Ms. Gonzalez for being a great chairman. I really appreciate the way you address yourself, but you are so courteous when telling you time's up, or it's time to move on. And Rudy, Mr. Garza, I'm going to thank you because you have kept us through these little storms that we've had. safe, and I lost no power. And that is great because that attests for your leadership. Your employees love you. Mulberry Street girls love you. The community loves you too. But also, there is one person here that deserves a lot of courage and, well, I don't know if to say courage, but well, yeah, courage because he answers my calls. And that is Richard Medina. Because if I send him pictures, he says, just guide me where it's at. And he takes care of it. Also, Richard Lujan, because we had a thing this last Friday where one of my Mulberry Street girls says she had a gas leak, but thank God, no gas leak because it's all electricity. And let's not forget Natalia. She's an amazing, empowered woman. And what about Blaze? Blaze is one of my best persons here. And also, he really does his job well. And I'm so proud of Blaze. Are you here, Blaze? And Eli Munoz. He is really great. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Alan Montemayor.
Hello once again, Alan Montemayor, Chairman of the Alamo Group of the Sierra Club. You'll be pleased to know that
I'm sorry, Alan, can you speak up a little bit more direct into the mic?
Yes.
You always have some really good feedback, so I'll just make sure we all hear you.
Lost my train of thought. I want to compliment you guys first on the effort that you have underway with SAWS to work on the proposal with the City of San Antonio Office of Sustainability to bring a solar array and battery storage unit to the H2 Oaks facility. It's something I've been asking for a long time. This is moving forward, potentially with money from the EPA. So thank you guys for working on this. I hope it does come to fruition. If it doesn't, we'll figure out a different way to make it work. Second thing is, another compliment. I see your people on the street working on lines and stuff. And if it's in my neighborhood, I always make it a point to stop and compliment them on what they're doing. It's much too easy to be upset with them for getting in the way of traffic or whatnot. And I don't imagine that they get a lot of compliments from people, but boy, when you give them a compliment, they just brighten up and shine right away. I just tell them, you know, thank you for keeping the power on. We don't take it for granted here. The third item I wanted to mention is a concerned citizen got a letter from CPS Energy on the Howard Road to San Miguel transmission line project. And their concern was that this was going to connect a very dirty lignite power plant to CPS Energy grid. In speaking with Richard Medina before the meeting, I understand that this is much more than that. It is the interconnect with the large project that is coming from ERCOT. I just wanted to make you aware, though, that from a public standpoint, you're probably going to get more comments like this because there's nothing in there that says that. It sort of reeks of lignite and coal and et cetera. I have alerted the environmental community about this. They are aware of it, and we'll be evaluating that and maybe going to your meetings. Thank you so much for listening.
That concludes your public comments. Is there any, Natira, just to make sure, any other additional public input? Okay. So unfortunately, and we get to conclude our meeting, our public input meeting shorter than I would like, but we've already had 2 public input individuals. And again, I just want to remind people that we continue to hold 2 more evening sessions and find different ways to communicate throughout the year with the community and get more input. So on that note, I would like to go ahead and, there's not a motion really, but motion to adjourn since at 5:38. So again, thank you, everybody, those who participated, including staff and the community. You're valuable to the city and to this organization. So have a great evening.